Yeah, we got to get Ethan's faith. Faith? We're not talking about Ethan's faith. That almost went really, really wrong there. No, Ethan's face. We need to get Ethan's face off the screen. Jesus Christ. Talk about feeding into some tropes about leftists. Oh wait, it's right here. It's right here. It's right here. Of course, it's right here. Of course, there it is. All right. I think J-Reg has enough to say about Ethan's faith. See, that's the thing, is J-Reg says everything and nothing. That's what's so frustrating about J-Reg. Right? He's on the you literally like it like he's dog whistling in all directions at the same time, right? It's very frustrating. Was that in question, Shakespeare? Anyway, let's get to this Trump tent. With the buttons that I know how to press. Is that all the buttons? No, it's not all the buttons. It's never all the buttons. Bombshell case. This just in. New indictment of the golden one. Not that golden one, chat. Not that golden one. This one. This guy. The golden boy. They indicted him. He's always so persecuted. He's the recipient of gang stalking, chat. There's gang stalkers out there that are in a cabal together to get Donald Trump, to fuck up Donald Trump, right? It's judges, it's civil servants, it's his vice president. They're all colluding. They're all colluding to fuck him over. So let's see what the latest betrayal is.
Breaking news, we are officially back, baby, because Donald Trump was just recharged in a special counsel election case due to the Supreme Court immunity ruling. Now, I'm not going to lie to you all, there was a month or two there where I was sad. I thought that Donald Trump had the Supreme Court behind him, and he does, but I thought he was going to be let off the hook for all of his election interference, let off the hook for January 6th and the Raffensperger phone call and all of the above, but now it seems like he is going to be held accountable because after the Supreme Court made a ruling that presidents enjoy presumptive immunity, a grand jury in DC just returned a superseding indictment that makes sure all of the evidence is admissible in court. Let's break it all down and then let's dig into the source document.
Okay, so do you see what's going on here? Right? There was a decision by the Supreme Court. It changed how a bunch of the cases against Donald Trump were going to be handled. And since some of these cases were indicted and charged and everything before the Supreme Court case, we've got to Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Okay, sorry. I am There's a so essentially the way that the charges are filed need to be different because the Supreme Court decision distinguishes between official and unofficial acts of a president, and meaning that if the acts are done in pursuance of the presidential duties, they're official. Those nothing to do with that can be charged, right? And that includes evidence that might be for a case about an unofficial act, a act that a president takes that is not in pursuance of their duties as president. So even if you want to get information on an act that the president has done unofficially, that's not part of his duty, his or her duty, you can't subpoena, you can't get stuff, you can't use evidence that is like, say, he had a conversation with a cabinet member, right? That's official duty. That's part of being a president, right? So even though there might be evidence, important evidence for this case, since it's over here on the official acts side of things, it doesn't count. And so when they charged this case, they had to kind of drop some of the people, some of the conversations, some of the evidence that they were using, because that evidence was part of presidential acts. But they can still apparently go forward with the case. And this is contingent, chat, contingent, importantly, upon whether or not Donald Trump is elected president in November. If he is elected president, I mean, this process will keep going, but once he's in there, he'll be able to brush it away. Things can't touch you while you're president unless they touch you through the Supreme Court. That's a very special way of being touched, but it means that the Supreme Court, what did I say? I'm sorry, Senate. It has to go through the Senate. It has to go through the House in terms of articles of impeachment, and it has to go through the Senate. It has to go through the Senate in terms of actually doing the impeachment itself, right? That removes a president from office, and once the president is removed from office, then potentially, and now there's a huge stumbling block of these official acts versus these unofficial acts, but potentially that case can be charged. So as long as there is a loyal Republican contingent in the Senate, there will be no charging of Donald Trump if he becomes president. Now, if he doesn't become president, this is very pertinent. This is very relevant. This will likely, I don't know if he'll be convicted, but, these charges will at least be heard, right? And so this is potentially very important, especially considering as it looks now that it's less likely that Donald Trump is going to be reelected than it looked like a month ago, 2 months ago, right? So, I mean, this is very important stuff, and this is a superseding indictment, meaning that I think, if I understand correctly, and I'll try to go through this and see, make sure that I'm right on this, but I think it means that it kind of sidesteps Judge Cannon's dismissal, right? Because the judge that I've been seeing in relation to this particular case is Judge Chutkan. So it looks like it kind of takes care, it kind of kills two birds with one stone, makes a case that's more appropriate for the post Supreme Court decision environment, legal environment, and it also, kind of sidesteps the whole question of Judge Cannon's dismissal of the documents case.
Itself, the actual superseding indictment, because you guys deserve to be educated and the mainstream media just won't do that. A federal grand jury on Tuesday returned a superseding indictment charging former President Donald Trump with the same offenses that he originally faced in his criminal election interference case in Washington, D.C. The new indictment was filed in order to, quote, respect and implement the views and instructions of a recent Supreme Court decision granting former presidents presumptive immunity for their official acts in office, Special Counsel Jack Smith said in a separate court filing, which we will read. The superseding indictment was presented to a new grand jury that had not previously heard any of the evidence in the criminal case against the Republican presidential nominee. The Department of Justice does not oppose letting Trump waive his appearance at an arraignment on the new indictment, the filing added. This is breaking news, so here is the superseding indictment. The defendant, Donald J. Trump, was a candidate for President of the United States. He lost the 2020 election. Yes, he did. Despite having lost, the defendant, who also was the incumbent president, was determined to remain in power. So, for more than 2 months following Election Day on November 3rd, 2020, the defendant spread lies that there had been outcome-determinative fraud in the election and that he had actually won. Those claims were false, and the defendant knew they were false, but the defendant used his campaign to repeat and widely disseminate them anyway to make his knowingly false claims appear legitimate, to create an intense national atmosphere of mistrust and anger, and to erode public faith in the administration of the election. As a candidate and a citizen, the defendant had every right, like every American, to speak publicly about the election and even to claim freely, falsely, that there had been outcome-determinative fraud. He was also entitled to formally challenge the results of the election through lawful and appropriate means, such
Rusty says knocking back the moonshine. I know, right?
seeking recounts or audits. His efforts
Share the moonshine.
to change the outcome in any state through recounts, audits, or legal challenges were unsuccessful. But shortly after the election day, the defendant pursued unlawful, extra-legal means of discounting legitimate votes and subverting the election results. And guys, this is incredibly important stuff. I know legal documents can be boring, but if you find this interesting, make sure you leave a like on the video and comment a blue heart so we can boost Donald Trump's crime. So here's what he did. These 3 criminal conspiracies. A conspiracy to defraud the United States by using dishonesty, fraud, and deceit to impair, obstruct, and defeat the lawful government function. 2, a conspiracy to corruptly obstruct and impede the January 6th congressional proceeding. And 3, a conspiracy against the right to vote and to have one's vote counted. Really quickly, I want to read to you guys Jack Smith's statement because he is an absolute savage and you guys deserve to hear it. Today,
Yo, chat, is it just me, or do you feel like every time somebody says, just really quickly, I want to... Wait, what did he say?
A conspiracy against the right to vote and to have one's vote counted. Really quickly, I want to read to you guys Jack Smith's statement.
Whenever I hear a YouTuber say really quickly, I think I'm about to get advertised to. I feel like the YouTuber's about to mention that at the top of every hour, there's a 3-minute ad break on Twitch, and that if you want to get out of that ad break, you can do so for free through a Twitch Prime or for $6 through $6, and that you could possibly even be gifted a sub. It can happen, and it does happen, but it's more likely to happen to you on Twitch if you're active in the chat. I feel like something like that is about to come up. I feel like they would remind you that we have a dono goal today, and if we hit it, we are, what, 1% of the way there. Thank you, Omega Star. See, if he's not going to take the opportunity to advertise, I am. No, I'm being a bitch. I'm being a bitch. But I also need to know, Omega Star, which of these topics you want to see covered. We got new FD signifier, online left video. We got Ethan Hassan breakup explained by Ethan himself. We got chat chooses violence because apparently I need to, got more violence that I need to enact on the enemies of the stream, and rhetorical violence, of course, right? And we've also got a diaper situation going on with Elon. And if any of those topics call out to you, you can let me know when you super chat, when you super sticker, if you're gifting memberships or getting yourself a membership, if you're signing up for Patreon or gifting to Throne, or of course anything like Omega Star just did in dropping some bits on Twitch. Omega Star says, I've been freaking out since the SCOTUS decision. Infuriating. Well, I mean, this is a good sign, at least, right? It's a good sign that the prosecutor feels like he's got a way to deal with this case, even considering the horrible Supreme Court's decision. I mean, this doesn't mean it'll go through, but it means that the prosecutor thinks it's worth trying, right? And that's at least a good thing to see. Like that's positive. So
because he is an absolute savage and you guys deserve to hear it. Today, a federal grand jury in the District of Columbia returned a superseding indictment charging the defendant with the same criminal offenses that were charged in the original indictment. The superseding indictment, which was presented to a new grand jury that had not previously heard the evidence, reflects the government's efforts to respect and implement the Supreme Court's holdings and remand instructions in Trump v. United States. The government does not oppose waiver of the defendant's appearance for arraignment on the superseding indictment, probably because because he'll be campaigning, he'll be busy, the government will confer with the defense and make a joint proposal regarding pretrial litigation. So it's actually a really smart move on Jack Smith's part to preemptively say, hey, let's make sure all of the Supreme Court's laws are implemented, all of the Supreme Court's rulings are implemented so they don't strike it down. He is being proactive. Each of these conspiracies that Donald Trump committed, which built on the widespread mistrust the defendant was creating through pervasive and destabilizing lies about election fraud, targeted a bedrock function of the United States federal government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election. In furtherance of these conspiracies, the defendant tried but failed to enlist the vice president, Mike Pence, who is honestly a patriot, who also was the
Oh my God.
the Constitution, the president of the Senate, who plays.
You make it so hard to forget that I'm watching a liberal. Yeah, Mike Pence, great American patriot. Look, what did Mike Pence do? He certified the freaking results of the election. These libs are glazing up somebody that probably wants a lot of us here to be removed from society in potentially very disturbing, possibly violent ways in Mike Pence, right? Is a great patriot for doing the bare minimum of the duty of vice president. What the fuck, Adam? What the fuck?
A ceremonial role in the January 6th certification. And it just gets worse and worse as I read more and more. The defendant and co-conspirators used knowingly false claims of election fraud to get state electors and
Lady Badash says, I'll never understand how disseminating misinformation, the election fraud claims, which he and his lawyers could not prove, there was no proof at all for, is protected by free speech. Look, it's not. That's not free speech. That is an argument that you will hear from MAGAs, but that is not an argument that you should take seriously, right? If that's free speech, then I don't know. You could, the mafia boss that tells their, their minion to go out and make somebody sleep with the fishes has done nothing wrong, right? That was free speech. That was free speech, right? It's just, it's wild. It's wild, right? That there, because there are crimes that the action that indicates the crime is speech. You said, like conspiracy, for instance, right? If I take, somebody aside and I say, I make a criminal conspiracy with you, I haven't done anything other than speak. And shouldn't my right to free speech be protected? Have I really done anything wrong? Yeah, I fucking involved you in a criminal conspiracy. I did do something wrong. Yes, I did. That is a fucking charge. That is the charge. The crime that's indicated is a crime that is accomplished through speech. There are crimes that are accomplished through speech, right? It's so wild that MAGAs are able to gaslight each other and even, just well-meaning people out there into thinking, well, Trump just said something. It's not really a crime unless you're going to say that free speech is a crime. And we all know that liberals think that free speech is a crime and they want to send you off to gulags and make sure that you take their comments way too seriously and ascribe it to some sort of mood when they're really dealing quite well with your mood.
Election officials to subvert the legitimate election results and change,
and quite generously, I might add,
electoral votes for the defendant's opponent, Joseph Biden Jr., to electoral votes for Trump. That is, on the pretext of baseless fraud claims, the defendant pushed officials in certain states to ignore the popular vote.
Is he loud enough? There we go.
Voters dismiss legitimate electors. Here is the illegal part. So yes, Donald Trump had the freedom of speech to say, hey, the election was stolen, but Donald Trump did not have the freedom to...
What is this about? It says Bullwhip Bobby Love. Bullwhip Bobby Love. These are new indictments. These are fresh indictments that just dropped.
I did everything right and they indicted me.
And they indicted him again. He got indicted. He got indicted, Bobby. He got indicted. That's what this is about. Trump's been indicted. He did everything right, but they still indicted him.
Push officials to ignore the popular vote. He did not have the freedom to disenfranchise millions of voters or dismiss the legitimate...
It's like, babe, wake up. New indictments just dropped.
Electors. This stuff is disgusting, and this is why I am not pulling any punches when it comes to MAGA this election cycle. I'm going to start going hard because they support a traitor. I'm sorry, but they support a traitor, and leave a like if you agree. The defendant and his co-conspirators organized fraudulent
Did I call you something wrong, Bullwhip?
slates of electors in 7 targeted states.
What did I say? Did I call you something other than Bullwhip Bobby Love? Also, are you a wrestler? That has got to be a wrestling name. I can imagine your character, right? You carry a bullwhip to the ring. Do you carry a bullwhip to the ring when you wrestle?
Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to make fun of you. I'm just having fun. I hope you're having fun too.
Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, attempting to mimic the procedures that the legitimate electors were supposed to follow under the Constitution and other federal and state laws. This included
What? You're a wrestler? That's so cool. Chat, we have a wrestler in chat.
electors to meet on the day appointed by federal law.
That's so good.
Electors were to gather and cast their votes. So, the MAGA argument is that the electors just happened to meet on the day they meant to cast their votes. The people at J6 just happened to all meet at the Capitol and try to hang Mike Pence. It was all just a coincidence.
Yeah, it's not a conspiracy. It's a coincidence. It's a coincidence. Oops, did we make a slate of electors that were not the duly chosen electors for the state? Oh, what a weird coincidence. Oops, did I tell my supporters to show up in on January 6th and say that it's gonna be wild? It's gonna be wild? What a coincidence. It's all a coincidence, chat. It's a free speech, and it's a coincidence, and it's a rigged witch hunt. That's what we got. That's what we got so far.
Trump. This included causing the fraudulent electors to meet on that day, cast fraudulent votes for Trump, and sign certificates falsely representing that they were legitimate electors. I have had people say that they didn't actually sign certificates, but yes, they signed certificates. They forged signatures falsely representing that they were the legitimate electors. Some fraudulent electors were tricked into participating based on the understanding that their votes would be used only if the defendant succeeded. And you know what? I do believe that some of them were genuinely tricked. There was one that looked like a 65-year-old grandma that doesn't even know how to use email. I doubt she knew.
Oh my god, they scammed grandma.
How the Electoral Count Act works. Next, the defendant and his co-conspirators attempted to
They scammed grandma.
ceremonial role as the president of the Senate to fraudulently alter the election results. First, they used knowingly false.
Yeah, Ceres is saying, passing a bank teller a note saying, give me all the dollars, give me all the money is free speech. No, that's free expression. That's art. That's art. You made an artistic piece. You made an artistic rendition of your desire for the bank teller to give you all of their money. And that's just, are they suppressing art? What are we, in the Soviet Union?
False claims of election fraud, Trump and his co-conspirators tried to convince and pressure.
Are there laws on stochastic terrorism? I'm not sure. I feel like that stuff is really hard to prove.
Poor sweet old Mike Pence, sweet little.
Wait, but with like Al Capone, would it be like racketeering? Is that what it's called?
Pence, who wouldn't hurt a.
I thought Ethan and Hassan were only taking a break. I mean, that is what we were told, Thomas. That is what we were told. But we got a little bit more from Ethan now. And if we hit the sub goal, well, let's see, where are we at right now? We're at 1% out of 100%. If we somehow make that, if we somehow add 2 zeros to that one, by the end of this stream, then you got the content of your choice. And what is the choice that chat is making right now? It looks like FD Signifier. It looks like FD Signifier is a popular guy today in the poll. Make sure to vote if you haven't already. The vote is in the chat that is on the full scale stream, the horizontal stream, whatever you want to call it. Trump tricked a grandma with the same is the same scam that tricked grandma in Thelma. Wait, Thelma? Wait, is this a Greek city, Thelma? Yo, I pressed the wrong button. There we go.
Even the fly on his face. Obviously, I'm being facetious. Mike Pence is not a good person. He wants to ban abortion federally, but he is a patriot, and we can say that
you have been tricked into glazing up a fundamentalist Christian nationalist who I assume, Adam, you oppose on almost every issue, whose beliefs of how the country should be run, I think you disagree with on almost every level, except for the one where you both think that an election that is won by the should be certified by the vice president. That is a procedural thing that should happen, and that it should not be the vice president saying, well, my president told me to hold off on this, so I'm going to create a constitutional crisis, right? That is such a low bar. That is such a low bar. And this is a real issue. Okay, I got to say it. This is a real issue with libs. The degree to which they want to make common cause with like never Trump Republicans, or in this case, this is not a never Trump Republican. This was Trump's vice president. And the only thing that he did that is good is really something that he didn't do. He didn't take a unprecedented illegal action, right, to prevent the peaceful passage of transfer of power. That's the only thing. You're glazing him up over that.
With certainty. If you guys enjoyed this video, if you guys appreciate what I do,
oh my God, yeah, we appreciate what you do. So we gotta wade through all of the lib takes. What the fuck is this? Oh my God, there's actually some good shit that they have. They have receipts, chat. The liberals have come and they've got receipts.
This is a breaking news alert. Special counsel Jack Smith has now secured a new indictment from another grand jury in Washington, D.C. against Donald Trump for his efforts to overthrow the results of the 2020 election. In legal parlance, we call this a superseding indictment in that it supersedes the prior.
Look, and in wrestling terminology, we call this a suplex. Donald Trump just got suplexed.
Indictment that was brought against Donald Trump back in 2020.
The same libs that thought that Liz Cheney was a good vice presidential pick for unity, yo.
For Trump's attempt to overthrow the result.
Look, Tim Walz is one of the good choices that the ticket has made so far, right?
Of the 2020
pleasantly surprised by it being Tim Walz rather than someone much worse.
Election. Special counsel Jack Smith had to conform the original indictment to the Supreme Court's ruling, where the Supreme Court found that Donald Trump was entitled to absolute immunity. But folks, this grand jury had been meeting in secret. The indictment just dropped. This shows special counsel Jack Smith is not backing down after the Supreme Court ruling finding that Donald Trump has absolute immunity. What special counsel Jack Smith just emphasizes in this superseding indictment is that Donald Trump was a citizen and a candidate. Sure, he happened to once be disgracing the Oval Office, but this superseding indictment makes it clear he was a citizen, he was a candidate, his conduct, his crimes were not within core constitutional functions or official acts of the presidency. Now, just a brief reminder of what went down. Special counsel Jack Smith indicted Donald Trump back in 2023 in Washington, D.C. federal court. The case was assigned to Judge Tanya Chutkan. Donald Trump filed a motion to dismiss that indictment on absolute immunity grounds. Judge Tanya Chutkan rejected it. Donald Trump appealed to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, a 3-judge panel made up of Democratic.
I'm so confused, chat. Wait. I need to figure this out. Okay. Maybe we'll figure this out. This is why we're watching more than one video, by the way, because I'm a little bit confused on something, right? And I want to get this right. Is this the Chutkan's case, or is this the Eileen Cannon? Was this the one that was in Eileen Cannon's court?
And Republican appointees rejected Donald Trump's claim of absolute immunity. Trump went to the United States Supreme Court. They found that he was entitled to absolute immunity for core constitutional functions, for official acts, and he was given an evidentiary immunity as well from introducing core constitutional functions and official acts into criminal cases against him. So, special counsel Jack Smith previously requested an extension of a status conference that was supposed to be held in the past few weeks. Why was he doing that? Well, now we know he had impaneled a grand jury to indict Donald Trump again to conform to the Supreme Court's ruling.
Speaking of Donald Trump, we got a new video from our special guy. Our special guy, Donald. Let's see what he's got for us this time. Oh, wow.
Is your favorite president, Donald?
It's my special guy. It's my special guy.
With some very exciting news.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Popular demand, I'm doing a new series of Trump digital trading cards.
Yo.
We've had a lot of fun with them. It's called the
Yeah, they're so much fun.
First collection.
Look at how fun they are. They're collectible.
All new stunning digital trading cards. It's really something. These cards show me dancing and even me holding some.
Now, if only they were those, you know, the cards that like they move when you turn them. You know what I'm talking about? It's like a billboard that like.
Bitcoins. Here's the best part. I'm doing great things for my Trump digital card collection.
Oh, these are digital, so they could be GIFs.
First, there's the real physical Trump cards. Purchase 15 or more of my Trump digital trading cards.
It's so funny. It's so funny. This all started with Trump dumping some NFTs, right? And of course, his fans, some of them do not understand a non-fungible token, and they're kind of like, well, it's like, what is it like? It's like a baseball card. It's a baseball card. When do I get the baseball card? They're like, you don't get the baseball card. The baseball card lives on your computer in your digital wallet next to all of your apes. Like, apes? I don't have any apes. I don't have a computer. What are you talking? I need a baseball card. And they're like, fine, we'll send you a baseball card. And they're like, yes, baseball card. Baseball card.
And we'll mail you a beautiful physical trading card. It's really, I think, quite something. Each physical trading card has an authentic piece of my suit that I wore for the presidential.
It's an authentic piece.
Debate.
He wouldn't lie to you, chat. He's Donald Trump.
And people are calling it the knockout suit.
Wait, the one that he wore for the debate? I thought it was going to be the one that he wore for... Oh my god, I can't use the button to do that. I thought it was going to be the one that he wore for the... when he got his ear, when he got that cartilage piercing.
Knockout suit. I don't know about that, but that's what they're calling it. I don't know about that, but the presidential debate, and people are calling.
Yeah, it's the
piece of my suit that I wore for the president.
See, I feel like that suit's unlucky though. He's not happy about the knockout. He didn't want to knock out Joe Biden. He wanted to keep Joe Biden in. He wanted to run against Joe Biden. He was all ready to run against Joe Biden. And he's like sad. He expressed the sadness. And he wants Joe Biden to come back. Come on back, Joe. You can be my opponent once again, right? This is not a lucky suit. This is an unlucky suit.
Presidential debate, and people are calling it the.
They should be giving the suit that he got shot in, because that's a lucky suit. If he turned his head in the exact right direction, if he hadn't turned his head, he would be not alive right now.
Knockout suit. I don't know about that, but that's what they're calling it. So we'll cut up the knockout suit, and
we're gonna cut up my suit, folks. They're gonna cut it right off of me.
You're going to get a piece of it.
You're gonna get a piece of it. I'm gonna be very cold. I'm gonna be very cold as the wind blows through my suit.
We'll be randomly autographing 5 of them, a true collector's item. This is something to give your family, your kids, your grandchildren.
Wait. So that means that, like, okay, so you get this physical card, and it's going to have for sure a piece of Trump's suit, but randomly he's going to autograph like 5 of them. So
number 2 is to purchase 75 of my Trump digital trading cards.
75 of his fucking NFTs.
And you will also be invited to join me for a gala dinner at my beautiful country club in Jupiter, Florida. We really have tremendous...
Wait, that's not even is that Mar-a-Lago?
Dinners with my collectors.
Is Mar-a-Lago in Jupiter?
Have a lot of fun together. We're gonna have a good time.
He's a fun guy.
My Trump digital trading cards at the same price of $99 each. We've
still only $99 each.
Done that right from the beginning. So go to collecttrumpcards.com. It's really easy to buy.
He didn't get greedy and raise his price to 100.
You just need an email address and a credit card or crypto. You know, they call me the crypto president. I don't.
They call him the crypto president. I wonder why. They call him the crypto nation, the crypto president. Oh my God, chat. He definitely is the crypto president, though. He really is.
I don't know if that's true or not, but a lot of people are saying that, so don't.
No, they're right, sir. They are completely right. You are the crypto president.
Don't miss out. Go to collecttrumpcards.com. go right now and
I wonder if Hitler had cards. Anyway, let's get back to this indictment.
Before the superseding indictment dropped, special counsel Jack Smith gave this notice.
I'm sorry, before the indictment dropped?
Superseding indictment that was filed on the same federal docket where the original case was brought. Here's what it says. Government's notice of superseding indictment today.
Trump is a boss. Jimmy Spades, are you going to buy part of his suit? Are you going to buy the baseball cards? Are you going to buy the digital cards?
A federal grand jury in the District of Columbia returned a superseding indictment, ECF number 226. That just means it's the filing number 226 in the same docket from the 2023 case, charging the defendant Donald Trump with the same criminal offenses that were charged in the original indictment. The superseding indictment, which was presented to a new grand jury that had not previously heard evidence in this case, reflects the government's efforts to respect and implement the Supreme Court's holding and remand instructions in the Trump v. United States Supreme Court ruling. The government does not oppose waiver of the defendant's appearance for arraignment on the superseding indictment. In other words, they're not going to make Donald.
He's like, you don't have to show up. Yeah, we don't need you. We don't need you, Trump. You can do your own thing.
Trump show up. They're going to agree that this could just be, he could just enter a not guilty plea without showing up if that's what he wants.
Or a guilty plea.
As this court directed, the government will confer with defense, with Trump's lawyers, and make a joint proposal to the extent possible regarding pretrial litigation in the status report due Friday. So let me share with you right now some of the major differences in the superseding indictment and from the original indictment. Let's pick up the superseding indictment right here.
Okay, so I just got to know what case we're talking about, because this is the biggest mindfuck with these Trump cases, is there's so many of them. He doesn't just get charged with one crime.
So peaceful up here, but now there are freaking communist invading radicals.
He gets charged with many crimes. Many a crimes, right? And it's sometimes hard to keep track of, like, what charges we're talking about, what trial we're talking about.
What you'll see is it starts with the following. The defendant, Donald Trump, was a candidate for president of the United States in 2020. He lost the 2020 presidential election. Despite having lost, the defendant, who was also the incumbent president, was determined to remain in power. So for more than 2 months following Election Day on November 3rd, 2020, the defendant spread lies that there had been outcome-determinative fraud in the election and that he had actually won. These claims were false, and the defendant knew that they were false, but the defendant used his campaign to repeat and widely disseminate them anyway, to make his knowingly false claim appear legitimate, create an intense national atmosphere of mistrust and anger, and erode public faith in the administration of the election. Notice, citizen, candidate. You see that language there over and over again. Now compare.
Okay, I get it. Okay, so I'm sorry. I was so confused. People were talking about Judge Cannon, and that's not this case. So the Cannon trial, you know, Judge Eileen Cannon, this is the judge that Trump himself appointed. He's got his home cook in from Judge Cannon, dismissing the case for me. Thank you very much, Judge Cannon. He's got Judge Cannon, and she dismissed the case, and Jack Smith appealed it. All right, so there's an appeal in process. That's not this case. That's not this case. This case is the case in front of Judge Tanya Chutkan's, that has to do with the slate of electors. So not the Georgia case, right? Not the Florida case. This is the Washington case, not the documents case. This is the fake electors case.
That with the original indictment that was filed back on August 1st of 2020.
Okay, count 1, conspiracy to defraud the United States of America. Count 2, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. Count 3, obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding. Count 4, conspiracy against rights. Voting rights, I'm guessing.
2023. It starts off that original indictment to 2023 saying defendant Donald J. Trump was the 45th president of the United States and a candidate for re-election. It emphasized Trump being the 45th president. And then it talks about in paragraph 2.
But the connecting line through the case of the Cannon case that's about documents, and this case that is about defrauding the United States, conspiracy to defraud, conspiracy to obstruct, obstruction of an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights, right? This is the this is also Jack Smith, but it is Jack Smith in front of Judge Chutkan's, whereas the documents case was Jack Smith in front of Judge Eileen Cannon. Eileen Cannon has dismissed that case, and Jack Smith has appealed to the 11th Circuit Court in an attempt to try to get it finally taken out of the hands of a judge, an incompetent and possibly conflicted judge that Trump himself appointed.
Despite having lost, the defendant was determined to remain in power. Power being in for president. So for more than 2 months following the election day, the defendant spread lies that there had been outcome determinative fraud. You see, the language is similar, but in the superseding indictment emphasizing this is not in his official capacity. He was a candidate and he was...
It's not just the emphasis that's different. There's some of the evidence, right, that's kind of changed too. In other words, any sort of conversations that he had with a cabinet member or I think a vice president, they're not... You can't use that, right? Because even the way that this ruling works is it's not just, so, you know, this is the Supreme Court's ruling that says the president has immunity for all acts undertaken in an official capacity as president of the United States. If it's part of the president's official duty, he can't be charged, right? If it's not like this, it's not the presidential official duty to try to steal an election, he can be charged. But if there was something that is relevant to this case that was done in his official capacity as president, i.e. talking to a cabinet member, you can't subpoena that stuff. So it's going to be a little bit harder in terms of the evidence, but that's part of why this case is different, is it concentrates on, it doesn't concentrate on the evidence that they can't get.
Just a citizen. So now you go over here, as my dogs are barking, but we go over here, ignore the dogs barking, and it says the following in paragraph 3. As a candidate and a citizen, the defendant had a right, like every American, to speak publicly about the election and even to claim falsely that there had been outcome determinative fraud during the election and that he had won. So notice again the language there. As a candidate and a citizen, the defendant had a right. I shouldn't have said ignore the dogs. We can enjoy the nice little cute barking of the dogs as we go through the superseding indictment of Donald Trump. You see, they concur and they agree right there. Going through the superseding indictment as well, one of the major differences as well that Kyle Cheney points out and that we identified at the Midas Touch Network is that Jeff Clark, co-conspirator number 4 in the original indictment, and the details about Trump's effort to commandeer the Department of Justice in support of his efforts have now been removed from the superseding indictment. And again, there's the additional language of Trump as a citizen and Trump as a candidate as opposed.
So do you understand why Jeff Clark is removed? This was apparently co-conspirator number 4 is now gone. That's part of official actions, I guess, whatever.
To Trump being in office. Now, one of the things here as well, why would they remove the allegations of Jeff Clark commandeering the Department of Justice to send letters to the states commanding them or directing them to declare there was fraud in the 2020 election when there was not? Because in the Supreme Court's opinion, Justice Roberts, Chief Justice Roberts, very bizarrely, and you may remember our breakdown here about it, said that one such act that would be considered official is when Donald Trump or a president consults with their Department of Justice and asks that they do things on his behalf. You may recall when we analyzed that Supreme Court ruling, we said not only is that just a very odd thing to say, it seems to contradict years and years, in fact, all of the precedent that the DOJ and the presidency are supposed to be independent of each other, right? And so the very fact that the Chief Justice Roberts would act like there's no independence at all is definitely something that we flagged right away and that we thought that there was a major issue about. But Special Counsel Jack Smith is undeterred. One more point I want to discuss as well. If you notice in the superseding indictment, Jack Smith did not shy away from bringing 18 U.S.C. Section 1512 C2 claims. Again, you can see it right there at the top and in the caption, right? That is the obstruction of official proceeding charge, right? Carries with a 20-year sentence. Now, you'll also remember the Supreme Court in the Fisher versus United States case said that 1512 C2 has to be related to documents. And they said that if it doesn't relate to the obstruction of actual documents, you can't bring that charge, which resulted in a lot of cases, or some cases, being dismissed against insurrectionists who may have obstructed an official proceeding, but who did not do it in connection with documents. What Special Counsel Jack Smith is also sending a message here with the superseding indictment, not removing the 1512 C2 criminal charge carrying with it 20 years, is that he's undeterred after the Fisher ruling to continue prosecuting Donald Trump on that basis. Once again, a new grand jury has indicted Donald Trump moments ago on these same 4 charges. Slight tweaks in the allegations, but Jack Smith is ready to go. That's why he wanted the delay. This is big news, folks. Hit subscribe.
Okay, so let's see. We got a little bit more here from Twitter.
Special Counsel Jack Smith has just filed a superseding indictment in the federal January 6th case. In a statement, the special counsel says, quote, "Today, a federal grand jury in the District of Columbia returned a superseding indictment charging the defendant with the same criminal offenses that were charged in the original indictment. The superseding indictment, which was presented to a new grand jury that had not previously heard evidence in this case, reflects the government's efforts to respect and implement the Supreme Court's holding and remand instructions." Let's bring in MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin. Lisa, what more can you tell us?
Well, Alicia, I can tell you a couple of things. One is that the Department of Justice, or rather the special counsel's office, in bringing today's superseding indictment, didn't change any of the actual charges against former President Trump. They remain identical to those on the original indictment, which was filed a year ago, or more than a year ago at this point, in August of 2023. But we are already seeing, just in comparing the number of sheets of paper, the original indictment was 45 pages long. This is 36 pages long. And so I expect once we start doing this page-to-page comparison, we will see the places where they have taken out allegations in order to try to comply with the Supreme Court's ruling. And in particular, one of the things that I expect will be missing here are allegations about former President Trump's interactions with Department of Justice officials. That is one concrete area that the Supreme Court hit in its July opinion, saying that his discussions with folks at the Department of Justice about whether or not there was election fraud and what they should do about it were part of his core constitutional duties for which he was in.
So yeah, this is what I was talking about, right? This is the kind of stuff that we're still talking about an unofficial act, or at least that's how Jack Smith is understanding it. How the judge in the case, how Judge Chutkan's and any judges that are appealed to will interpret that as another matter. But at least it shows confidence on the part of the special counsel to be able to still file these charges, but the acts, the evidence that it was part of official acts, i.e. his correspondence with the Department of Justice, not available. So it's kind of a weird, I gotta say, all right, in case I haven't made this point, driven this home enough, right? The Supreme Court is sus. The Supreme Court is sus as fuck. This decision that they've rendered is the biggest red flag to their conflict of interest and their illegitimacy. All right, I don't know how else to say it. Right? Imagine something that takes not a the ability to charge a crime away from a federal prosecutor, but rather the evidence that the federal prosecutor can subpoena is restricted. There's evidence, we can't see it because it's part of the official actions, right? I mean, this shows it to you right here. This shows it to you right here, the kind of the veil of protection that the Supreme Court is allowing, is lending Donald Trump.
Entitled to absolute immunity. That is perhaps the only area that they gave clarity on. The others, they gave sort of contours about what he would be.
And that's what makes it complicated. That's what means that this might get appealed. And this might get appealed to the Supreme Court, or you know, like most likely not. But it's up to the judge to interpret exactly where the boundary is between an official act and an unofficial act, and thus whether a crime can be charged, or whether, you know, the charge can stick.
Immune for what he wouldn't be immune for, but that is one where they gave precise guidance, and so I would expect to see that cut out of this superseding indictment. I will also tell you, this isn't entirely a surprise. When the special counsel's office 3 weeks ago asked Judge Tanya Chutkan for more time to tell her what they thought the appropriate way forward was, a number of folks, me included, thought one thing that they could be doing with that time is thinking about whether they want to supersede and essentially take a first crack at trying to comply with the court's orders rather than dumping it all in Judge Chutkan's lap, as the Supreme Court's opinion essentially does. You see here the special counsel's office making a good faith effort to do that with a newly convened grand jury. That's because the grand juries who have heard evidence in this case before have expired. In all likelihood, they did not bring witnesses before this new grand jury, but rather an agent from the FBI to even read back from transcripts from grand jury interviews that were conducted prior to the first indictment. So we have some reading to do and comparing page by page what's still here. But for the most part, this remains a case against former President Trump only, identical charges, and with lighter numbers of pages of paper here in an attempt to try and comply with the Supreme Court's order by taking out allegations of official acts for which the Supreme Court has said now that the former president cannot be charged, much less convicted, Alicia.
Okay, so yeah, now I want to tell you about what the effect of this is, right? One of the effects of this is that a case that was already not going to have a chance of being resolved prior to the election or the inauguration of the next president, right? And it pushes it even further back, right? So that's one of the things that Trump wants, is to push this stuff back. Now, it's already been pushed back to the point where it wasn't going to be concluded prior to the election, or it wasn't going to be concluded prior to the inauguration of the next president. So that part maybe doesn't matter so much, but just if you're keeping track of it at home, you can think of it as a reset, right? This is a reset of the charges in light of the decision by the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court has done so much for Trump, right? Both in terms of this patina of protection that they offer him with this characterization of official versus unofficial acts, and with the kind of delay that this causes for his case. But regardless, chat, it doesn't look like there's going to be more cases decided prior to the election. So it really does depend on whether Trump is elected or whether Trump is rejected. If he's rejected, then all of these cases are going to have their chance, right? Again, some of them may not go through. Some of them may not go through because of the new rules by the Supreme Court. But likely, with the amount of shit that the former president is charged with, something's going to get him. Now, my prediction for that is that since he's a former president of the United States and a very powerful and rich man, any sort of consequences that he receives are going to seem like a slap on the wrist. But it is a slap on the wrist that comes with a blow to his ego, right? You're less likely to see the president being sentenced to jail than you are to see the president being sentenced to home confinement or, having his travel restricted or something like that, right? It's going to be more likely something that's not that big of a deal. But yeah, there is. I think it does matter. I think it does matter that charges are filed and convictions are delivered to kind of, confirm to people who might be on the fence as far as, is there really anything there or not? My friend told me that Joe Biden, he's crazy. He's making Merrick Garland file all these charges, right? It's not real. It's, the judges are going to throw it out, right? And, at least some of those people might have their minds slightly changed. And also, if Trump is not elected, right, I don't know if he comes back in 2028. I don't know if he comes back. It also depends on how much he loses by, right? If he loses, again, if he wins, then most likely all of these charges that are currently in consideration will be brushed away and will not affect him, right? Remember, for a president of the United States to be touched by legal criminal anything requires a vote by a majority vote by the House of Representatives and I think it's like a super majority from the Senate in order to impeach and then remove the president from office. And only after that president has been removed from office can any subsequent charges or the charges that are were discussed in the impeachment, can those actually affect the president? So again, most of the question of what will happen to Trump will be answered by the outcome of this upcoming election. Anyway, let's see. I think that we got everything we need to get out of that. Let me read you a little bit more. Among the actions Chutkan must analyze are Trump's public statements to his supporters before the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol, and the plan to organize alternative slates of electors to pledge to vote for him in the states he lost in order to thwart congressional certification of Biden's victory. Chutkan must also decide whether prosecutors can overcome a presumption that Trump cannot be prosecuted for pressuring then Vice President Mike Pence to derail congressional certification. The Supreme Court deemed those communications official acts. That's wild. That's wild. Right? I mean, I guess technically, yeah, the vice president communicating with the vice president, I guess that's an official act. But anyway, the immediate job that Judge Chutkan has is to clarify what can go to trial and what can't, said Jeremy Fogel, a former federal judge and executive director of the Berkeley Judicial Institute. Trump would likely appeal her initial rulings, which could cause more delays. Under the indictment, Trump was charged with conspiring to defraud the United States, corruptly obstructing an official proceeding, and conspiring to do so, and conspiring against the rights of the Americans to vote. The trial had been scheduled to begin in March, but was delayed by litigation over Trump's claim of immunity. Chutkan has previously promised to give Trump about 90 days to prepare for a trial once the case returns to her courtroom, with a trial expected to last 6 to 8 weeks. So yeah, again, a lot of what Trump's lawyers do is delay, and that's been like all his life, right? This is a very rich man who has been very corrupt all of his life, possibly been in violation of the law multiple times, and has received very little consequences for that, as rich people tend to avoid those consequences, and through delay of proceedings and arguments of technical dismissing charges on a technicality. A lot of times these guys get away with everything. And when they do get punished, they get punished with a little slap on the wrist most of the time. If Trump wins, he could direct the U.S. Justice Department to end the case. Chutkan, born in Jamaica, was nominated as a judge by Democratic former President Barack Obama. Gained courtroom experience as a public defender. Interesting. That's an interesting, like, usually it's harder to, advance in your career coming from a public defender. It's a difficult place to be. Representing people accused of murder and sexual assault. Chutkan has previously shown little patience for Trump's delay tactics and his attacks on the criminal justice system. The fact that the defendant is engaged in a political campaign is not going to allow him any greater or lesser latitude than any other defendant in any criminal case, Chutkan told Trump lawyers during a hearing last year. Even before Trump's case landed in her courtroom, Chutkan drew attention for giving some of the Capitol rioters harsher sentences even than those sought by prosecutors. She's intense. She's brilliant. She's no nonsense, glazes Heather Shaner, a Washington criminal defense lawyer who has appeared before Chutkan. She doesn't countenance fools. Chutkan's remarks about the Capitol attack led to an unsuccessful effort by Trump's lawyers to remove her from the case. Trump last year called Chutkan biased and unfair. Chutkan swiftly rejected Trump's argument that he could not face prosecution for an official action he took as president, writing in December 2023, ruling that the U.S. president does not confer, that the U.S. presidency does not confer a lifelong get-out-of-jail-free pass. But the Supreme Court found that the powers of the presidency require an expansive legal shield. Chutkan will have to apply those new guidelines to Trump's case. Chutkan will also will need to determine the impact of a separate Supreme Court ruling last week that raised the legal bar for federal obstruction charges against people involved in the Capitol attack. 2 of the 4 counts against Trump were brought under the same law. Prosecutors previously indicated they intend to move ahead with those charges in his case. It may be an uphill climb for Trump's lawyers. During last year's hearing last year, Trump attorney John Lauro credited Chutkan, saying she hit the nail on the head while making a point from the bench. That may be the last time you say that for a while, Chutkan responded, drawing laughs from the courtroom. So there we go. That is the case. Those are the new indictments against Trump. And lest you think we're done with our politics for the day, look what we got, chat. Leaked audio. JD Vance's leaked audio. We got leaked audio here. Let me check back on the poll. Okay, so 41% of you want to see the new FD signifier video, the online left. 25% of you are interested in Ethan and Hassan's breakup finally explained. 24% of you in Elon's diaper situation, and only 10% of you in chat chooses violence. So that is where we're at right now. That is what we're dealing with right now. As far as the dono goal, though, that's the hanging point, because we are 1% of the way towards the dono goal. That means we're 99% away from the dono goal, and that's a bit of distance. That is just a bit of distance right now. Just like we have a little bit of distance from the top of the hour ad break that I keep on forgetting to tell you is coming up, so I'll let you know now. In 20 minutes on Twitch, there's going to be another ad break. That's an ad break that you can get out of for free or for $6 with a Twitch Prime, or with $6. You can also possibly get out of it by being gifted a sub by somebody giving subs, but you're more likely to get one of those gift subs if you're active in the chat. If you're actually active in the chat. Did we already cover the stream title? I'm sorry, what? No, we did not. We did not. That's a good question. That's a very good question, right? We are going to talk about Vosh being trolled by a certain JREG. And that is coming up. We got some Trump tint, and we got some Vance tint. We got some leaked audio. to go over first, right? And that's what I want to know right now. What is this leaked audio about?
JP Mandel has done it again. You know, I've spent all day researching for videos and recording for videos, and I just sat down to hang out for a bit. And when I opened Twitter, I saw trending #1, JD Vance teacher comments. And I immediately went, oh God, what did JD Vance say about teachers this time? Does he think that they should all be thrown in a wood chipper? Does he think that they should be paid less? He had to have said something wild, but what he said was beyond my wildest imagination. So I immediately sat down and thought, let's make a video about this, because while these comments came out, JD Vance was giving a speech. Take a look at this clip.
Like I said, we've got some great leadership, like Mike Rogers, who are helping us in this fight. We've also got Chairman Pete Hoekstra, who will help turn Michigan red. Where's Pete at?
I just want to point out, Pete Hoekstra is a Project 2025 author, one of the many Project 2025 authors that will be a part of the Trump administration. I mean, the overlap between Trump's first administration and the authors of Project 2025 is about 84%. It is an 84% overlap. Here's another clip of JD Vance giving a speech in Big Rapids, Michigan. He says, while Donald Trump is a people's president, Kamala Harris is running on fake joy. I'll break it down in a second.
So, while Donald Trump is the people's president and Kamala Harris is running on a fake joy, Donald Trump is going to offer something very, very different. He's going to offer a very real hope for the future of this country.
That's original. That's real original. Where did you come up with hope from? Did you just come up with that on the spot, JD Vance? It's almost like you stole that from Democrats. It's almost like that's our entire campaign slogan. But when he said Donald Trump is going to run on something unique, I thought he was going to say narcissism and lies and election denial for a second.
Hope that we can reignite our economy and bring back prosperity. Hope that we can raise our kids in secure neighborhoods with safe borders. Hope that we can renew the patriotism that binds us together as one.
I mean, it's just so easy to debunk all of this. If you wanted safe borders, Donald Trump wouldn't have shot down the bill that Langford introduced in the Senate. Also, if you wanted our kids to be safe, you would make sure that there are common sense gun control laws. As Jojo from Juris points out, Donald Trump left office with one of the worst economic legacies in our history, and all he ever says now is how much we suck, how much our country sucks. Donald Trump is a pessimist, not a patriot. Everything JD Vance says is so easily debunkable. I'll show you the leaked clip in 1 second, but here's another clip from Big Rapids.
Our border, my friends, our border was secure. Overdose deaths were coming down where they had gone up for 15 years. And a lot of people who struggled in my hometown had good jobs and good prosperity, and it happened all across the state of Michigan and Ohio.
Again, this is a lie. JD Vance says that overdose deaths were coming down, but I have an article saying fatal overdoses climbed to record highs in 2019, reversing historic progress. And of course, Donald Trump was the president in 2019. The mainstream media does not do fact checks that are this arduous. We make sure to fact check everything JD Vance says so that when something disgusting comes out like this, we know not to give him any charitability. This is an audio clip of JD Vance saying that teachers who do not have biological children disorient and disturb him. Just listen.
And I think our conservative idea is that parents and families should determine what children learn, what values they are brought up with. You know, so many of the leaders of the left, and I hate to be so personal about this, but they're people without kids trying to brainwash the minds of our children. And that really disorients me and it really disturbs me. Randy Weingarten, who's the head of the most powerful teachers union in the country, she doesn't have a single child. If she wants...
So yeah, literally just attacking people on the basis of whether they have children or not, right? This is something that JD Vance has tried to distance himself from. We saw his interview from ABC over this weekend where he was asked about his childless cat lady comment. He described it as being sarcastic. Now, chat, do you know what sarcastic is? Like, sarcastic is when I'm saying something and I mean the opposite, right? So if I was going to be sarcastic about this butterfly clip, I would say that this is a really large butterfly, right? This is a really large butterfly clip. And this is a really small one, right? This is a really large, and you know what I mean? I'm saying the opposite of what I mean, right? That's what sarcasm is, right? Was JD Vance saying the opposite of what he means and saying that, like, childless cat ladies don't have enough power in our country? No. right? Sarcasm would be like, oh, childless cat ladies have all the power in our country. Ha ha ha. Right? That's sarcasm. That's not what he fucking said. That's not what he said. You know, like he could say it's a joke, or he could say, you know, he could try to distance himself in some other way, or that, like, you know, he didn't. I don't know, but what he used sarcasm. He used sarcasm. It's definitely not sarcasm.
To brainwash and destroy the minds of children, she should have some of her own and leave ours the hell alone.
Again, this is very consistent with what JD Vance has said time and time again about women, or about people who don't have children not having as much of a say. And I just want to say this also undermines other things JD Vance has said in the past. So he has said before that it's not personal. It's not a personal thing. But in this very clip, he says, I hate to be so personal about this.
I hate to be so personal about this, but there are people without...
He just said, I hate to be so personal about this. Then he gets incredibly personal. So anytime JD Vance says he's not trying to get personal, that is a complete lie. But again, the hatred and animosity that JD Vance has for people who have yet to have children, or for people who just can't have children for one reason or another, is absolutely sickening.
Now, I will confess that in some ways I have a soft heart, ladies and gentlemen. In some ways I feel bad for Kamala Harris. They don't.
See, that's sarcasm. That's sarcasm.
But I'm not sure that this is a woman who knows what she actually believes.
That is rich coming from the man who once said that Donald Trump is America's Hitler and now is his most ardent supporter. That is rich coming from the man who went to an elite university that now rails against those very elite universities. I mean, here are some examples of what JD Vance has said about Trump in the past. Quote, he might be America's Hitler. Quote, he might be a cynical asshole. He's cultural heroin. He's noxious and reprehensible. The wild thing about JD Vance is he used to have a certain level of self-awareness that he has completely lost, and now he just lies. Now he has this Trumpian way of going on where we can go through every single one of his clips and everything he says is a lie. That is why I'm so excited to hear him debate Tim Walz. Here's a clip of him talking about Tim Walz.
He calls me weird, but then he lies about how his kids were conceived. Who does that? That's just the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
Oh no, oh no.
Concerned with how Tim Walz's kids were conceived, and where there's no proof that Tim Walz is lying at all. JD Vance's entire shtick is just undermining other people's lived experiences, whether they are...
Well, I mean, they're really going after him because he used, like, in vitro to conceive his kids.
A teacher, whether they are a woman with infertility...
Well, yeah, they're trying to do this with this, and there's also a dog. I didn't cover this, chat, because I feel like it doesn't merit being covered. It is a ridiculous charge, but right-wingers, and I kid you not, are right now trying to imply that Tim Walz lied about his dog. Tim Walz petted his dog and took a picture and tweeted it. Okay, that's fine. And then he petted a different dog, and he tweeted that, and he mentions the name of his dog, which right-wingers are taking to be... He is saying that that is his dog, and yet this dog is beige, and this dog is black. How can it be the same dog? How can Schrodinger's dog be both black and beige at the same time? It doesn't make sense. Tim Walz, how could you elect him as vice president when he tweets out other people's dogs? Oh no, chat. Oh no.
Fertility issues, whether they are Tim Walz serving in the military. All he does is undermine other people's lived experiences, and that is how MAGA trolls function. Here are people chanting, lock him up about Tim Walz. It's just disgusting.
Lock him up for the dog thing? Wait, why would they lock him up?
Disgusting escalation of rhetoric.
Where is this coming from? I don't understand.
Walz, Kamala Harris not only chooses to stand by this man, because in spite of his...
Lock him up for taking his students on China trips?
She actually chose him to become her vice president to begin with.
Because he's awesome.
Now, while we're on the subject...
Why would they lock him up? I don't understand.
Something else at her convention. She said, and I don't know if you paid attention here, she said there are going to be extremely serious consequences for voting for Donald Trump. Now, Kamala, I've got two responses to that. First of all, that is not a very presidential thing to say. Is she the vice president or the vice principal? Warning about very serious consequences.
Good one, JD Vance. Donald Trump is the one who can't go 1 second without throwing a temper tantrum on Truth Social, where he's talking about crooked, crazy people, radical leftists. I mean, Donald Trump is the one who can't be presidential for 5 seconds, and that is exactly why his team wants the mics muted during the debate. Also,
wait, what did she say again?
Presidential thing to say. Is she the vice president or the vice principal? Warning about very serious consequences.
Good one.
Just like I gotta warn about very serious consequences if you act the fool in chat, right?
JD Vance. Donald Trump is the one who can't go one.
There will be some very serious consequences, and they may involve both a gulag and an archipelago.
Second without throwing a temper tantrum on Truth Social, where he's talking about crooked, crazy people, radical leftists. I mean, Donald Trump is the one who can't be presidential for 5 seconds, and that is exactly why his team wants the mics muted during the debate. Also, the fact that a crowd member chanted "lock him up" about Tim Walz, who is one of the sweetest people ever, I mean, that is the definition of weaponizing your
No, but I really want to know what's going through their minds, right? Is this just something you say about your opponents now? Seriously, the Trump people, they have fulfilled their prophecy, right? They said that, like, Donald Trump or the Biden's going after his political enemies, like that he's trying to lock people up just because they are opposing him politically. And here you have, look, with Hillary, you know, there was the emails thing. I guess you could think that, like, you know, she did some kind of crime and the FBI just, like, let it go somehow. I don't know. So there's a rationale there, you know, when they talk about Joe Biden and they try to link him to Hunter Biden and all this Burisma stuff, right? There's at least like a charge, or there's some kind of crime that they're talking about, right? So lock him up, kind of, you know, I mean, you have to really believe some unbelievable stuff, but I mean, I understand what the mental process is here. I don't understand the mental process for locking up Tim Walz. I don't understand what they think that Tim Walz did that was against the law. The dog thing was Tim with his Republican doing. Oh, they're doing an Uno reverse card on Twitter. People were laughing at how JD Vance clearly never tweeted or walked that dog he showed up with before. Well, look. The bar is high for dogs, Alexander, and I'm glad you brought that up to kind of add a little bit to our picture of the situation, right? But the dog thing, the bar is high, all right, as far as crimes involving dog. We got Kristi Noem unaliving a dog, taking a dog out, using her stand to destroy the dog, which is the hand, right? She just whoosh, no more dog. She gets rid of the dog. She annihilates the dog, right? So the bar is kind of high, right? As far as like what is actually like a bad. I think tweeting somebody else's dog, not really a crime. And whatever people are saying about like JD Vance's dog, what is it? Never tweeted or walked that dog he showed up with ever. Oh, so he's got a dog that's just for his campaign, kind of. Is that the deal? Yeah, stolen valor. Well, stolen valor when it comes to dogs, right, Walter Greenwood? That's what you're talking about. He's stealing the valor of a pet owner, right? Saying, I am the pet owner of this beautiful dog, and he's not. He's not. That's not scout. That's stealing honor. That's stealing valor. That's stealing holler. He's stealing the holler. He's stealing the valor from the holler of Hillbilly Elegy.
Whining at people for telling a joke instead of trying to persuade them that she deserves to be their president. I'm sick of people like that.
Again, Donald Trump is the one that whines all the time. JD Vance is a shell of a human who is regurgitating talking points rather than actually engaging with any of these topics. The JD Vance of 5 years ago would hate JD Vance. JD Vance then uses this typical Republican line, but it just doesn't quite land. Watch.
Now, Kamala Harris has run her entire campaign on the idea that she's joyful. But ask yourself, are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
Is this going to be the fake joy thing, Pepsi Man?
Yeah, we were in the middle of the COVID crisis 4 years ago. We were all quarantining at home amid mass deaths in America, as Aaron Rupar says. I just want to reiterate, JD Vance is a shell of a human being who only knows how to regurgitate what Daddy Trump tells him to say. He never actually engages with these talking points, and I firmly believe that the JD Vance of 5-6 years ago would be disgusted with the shell of a human being that he's turned into. He goes on stage, and he rattles off a bunch of talking points that Daddy Trump wants him to, and none of them are true. We went through this video and we responsibly fact-checked everything JD Vance said, from his wild remarks about overdoses to stuff that he said about Kamala Harris being more divisive than Donald Trump, and I hope you appreciate that. If you did, all that I ask is that you leave a like, comment a blue heart, hit that subscribe.
God damn. God damn. Okay, what else do we have here? Some more JD Vance.
Yikes. Take a look at JD Vance's net favorable polling averages, or I should say unfavorable polling averages, and Donald Trump is pissed. And so what the Trump campaign tried to do is put JD Vance in front of a larger crowd. So they assembled a somewhat bigger group in Big Rapids, Michigan. It was a disaster. But let's take a look at these numbers. July 18th, the net favorable polling for JD Vance was negative 3.3. And you see that fell to negative 5.3, negative 7.3, negative 9.3, negative 9.1, and now negative 9.7%, and it just keeps getting lower and lower. And just take a look. Here's why. This guy is weird and creepy. You know, he's given this speech in Big Rapids. He's wearing the eyeliner, and he tries to make some strange joke about Pokemon cards. Here, play this clip.
He is, I will say, the best grandmother that my kids could ask for. They are 7, 4, and 2. Spoils them a little bit too much. Mom, no more Pokemon cards in front of 1,000 people. No more Pokemon cards. The kids have got enough.
Yeah, JD Vance, you're just not that funny. And then he tries to like talk about, I'm gonna have what the guys behind me are having. Here, play this clip.
I gotta get whatever we fed these guys behind me. They're having a good time.
Again, JD, not funny, no comedic element at all there. Then here, JD Vance, he's talking about Vice President Kamala Harris, and he says, she's like the vice principal. Here, play this clip.
So we already heard this one.
Well, I've got two responses to that. First of all, that is not a very presidential thing to say. Is she the vice president or the vice principal? Warning about very serious consequences, whining at people for telling a joke instead of trying to persuade them that she deserves to be their president. I'm sick of people like that.
What? I mean,
the only very serious consequences I've got to warn you about is the consequence of not having a sub on Twitch when the ad break hits, which is in about 2 minutes, right? If you don't have that ad break, if you don't have that sub, you will experience 3 minutes of unskippable ads. That's not like YouTube ads where you can skip them. It's like an ad that you can't skip, but you can skip them. You can skip them. There's a particular way though. You got to hook up your Prime to Twitch if you've got Prime, and you can do it for free. Or you can pay $6 to Twitch to get out of the ads for an entire month, right? You could also possibly be gifted a sub. That can happen. That does happen, but it's more likely to happen if you're active in the chat, right? But look, chat, I warned you about the consequences of not having a sub on Twitch when the ad break happens in a minute or two. There's also consequences for not hitting the dono goal, which we're 99% away from that right now. And the consequences is that whatever content you were counting on, let's say that you went in the poll and you voted for the new FD signifier video, the online left, and you were thinking, I'm gonna get to watch Irene react to that, right? If we don't drive that dono goal forward to 100%, I'm never gonna react to it, and you're gonna be like, wait, is the stream over? What's going on? What's going on? Where's the FD signifier? The FD signifier, right? It doesn't happen without the dono goal being advanced to 100%. So that is definitely a consequence that should be thought about. You can also add percentages to the topic of your choice when you donate. So let's say you do a super chat or super sticker. Let's say that you donate memberships on YouTube, or you sign up for the Patreon, or you donate to the throne, or you get one of those subs on Twitch so that you don't have to see the ad break. You get to tell me where to put your money as a percentage, right? Where to put your donation as a percentage and apply it to the subject of your choice. So let's say you don't like the FD signifier video. You've already seen it. You've already seen people react to it. You don't want to see it again. You want to know about Ethan and Hassan and their breakup, and what is the explanation? What is the reason? Why did they break up, right? You can say that, right? And I'll literally add percentages to that. So if you don't like where the poll is going, there are remedies, and they very much feel like money in politics. One of the ways you can get money out of politics, though, is by saying Vox Populi. And literally what you do there is you undermine all the donors. All the donors that thought that they were going to get me to do something else. They were like, chat chooses violence. Let's choose that one, right? And you're like, and you donate and you say Vox Populi. You literally cut the feet out from under them and snatch victory from the jaws of defeat and hand it back to chat. If that's the kind of hero you are, you can say Vox Populi. You can say any of these topics you want. Again, the topics are FD Signifier's new video, The Online Left, Ethan Hassan breakup explanation, chat chooses violence. We got more President Sunday to watch. And the Elon diaper situation is wild. Anyway, let's get back to this this Trump and Vance beef. Let's see what this is about, right? Do you think that Trump might replace Vance? People have been talking. People have been talking about the fact that Vance feels like Trump's like like son by birth, right? And RFK Jr. is like the cool kid in the neighborhood that Trump wishes was his son, right? And maybe wishes was his vice presidential candidate. Can he change his vice presidential candidate? Can he change horses in midstream? People are talking about it, right? There's even a campaign sign that shows Kennedy's name more prominently than Vance's name. So, I mean, it is a subject of discussion. Whether or not it can really happen, though, we'll take a look into that in just a minute.
This guy was at an open mic night. I mean, he would get booed off in a second. Here he is saying that Vice President Kamala Harris doesn't know who she is. Play this clip.
Now, I will confess that in some ways I have a soft heart, ladies and gentlemen. In some ways I feel bad for Kamala Harris.
Okay, so I feel like we already saw this part. Yeah.
It or not, the party of lower income, lower self to blame.
What is this?
We are, whether we like it or not, the party of lower income, lower education white people. And I have been saying for a long time that we need to offer those people something and help, maybe even expand our appeal to working class black people in the process. Or
oh my God, don't go too crazy, JD Vance. Don't go too crazy. Wait, is this a leak? Where did this come from? I advanced it too far, chat, because I knew we'd already seen the that clip from
just a few years ago. This is an actual text message from JD Vance to his friend. I'm not surprised by Trump's rise, and I think the entire party has only itself to blame. We are, whether we like it or not, the party of lower income, lower education white people, and I have been saying for a long time that we need to...
Okay, look, lower education might be true, but lower income is not true. Any analysis of the voters that vote, for Trump versus Hillary, or Democrat versus Republican, kind of shows the opposite. And it makes sense too, because the Republican Party, despite the Democrat Party, kind of vying for the affection of the top donors, right? The Republican Party is the one that gives them all that they want. Cuts regulation, cuts taxes, raises tariffs so that regular working people have to pay the price rather than the wealthy people, right? They're giving them everything they want. And it sort of makes sense that that wealthy people would support this. Does that mean that there's not some lower income people that vote for Trump that vote for Republicans? Absolutely. Absolutely there are, right? But I mean, that feels more like a stereotype than the truth. And any analysis, any demographic analysis I've ever seen does not confirm the assumptions that JD Vance is making here.
Offer those people something and help, maybe even expand our appeal to working class black people in the process, or a demagogue would. We are now at that point. Trump is the fruit of the party's collective neglect. I go back and forth between thinking Trump is a cynical asshole like Nixon, who wouldn't be that bad and might even prove useful, or that he's America's Hitler.
Oh shit, this is the America's Hitler comment, right? So he is a Republican here, but it looks like he's conflicted about Trump. Is he an asshole or is he Hitler?
Discouraging. And here, JD Vance then says that really what Donald Trump's campaign is about is joy, and that Vice President Kamala Harris is offering fake joy. Play this clip.
Okay, so there's the fake joy thing.
While Donald Trump is the people's president, and Kamala Harris is running on a fake joy.
We've already seen this.
About someone who was raped by somebody who was, 14 years old as a victim. Why not allow that person to have an abortion?
I've talked to some other legislators about this, and they've met the same people that I've met who've told their story of once this child knew they were in their second or third trimester. And I am that child, that I've talked to those people who were the child of a rape victim, and the bond that those two people made, and the fact that out of that tragedy, there was healing through that baby. It's something that we don't think about because we assume that story.
Oh my God.
And then JD Vance is obviously very defensive about being called weird by Governor Walz, and then says Governor Walz is weird because he doesn't know how his kids are conceived. Here, play this clip.
Now, he lies about everything, of course. He calls me weird, but then he lies about how his kids were conceived. Who does that? That's just the weirdest thing I've ever seen. He said...
So yeah, he's bound and determined to attack Tim Walz over the fact that his kids were conceived through in vitro fertilization, right? That's what he's trying to signal. That's what he's trying to do. That's why right-wingers had the sperm sample cups that they were carrying around, and it said JD Vance's full family kit. And the joke was supposed to be it's JD Vance's sperm, which is really potent and really good, unlike Tim Walz's sperm, which wasn't good enough to conceive without in vitro fertilization. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right, chat. They are sperm shaming. They are sperm shaming Tim Walz, right? And flexing JD's jizz. I don't know whether it was extracted with a couch or a dolphin or what, chat, but this is
Why are you talking about how Governor Walz's kids are conceived? I mean, Governor Walz...
Wait, Look Bovine says IUF and not IVF? Intrauterine... Sorry, what are you saying?
Did use a type of IVF. He used fertility treatment. And Governor Walz talked about how if IVF was banned, the fertility treatment that he used would not be allowed by law, and the Republicans are blocking.
So wait, is that what JD Vance is trying to say?
Bills that would codify the protections that provided the fertility treatment to Governor Walz. Why is that something that you're attacking? And then
wait, who mixed it up? Did Walz mix it up, or did Vance mix it up? I returned to Vance's fluids.
I've showed you this before, but some of the, I guess, JD Vance supporters, like, if you want to know, like...
There it is, chat. The full family kit.
Who are the people who actually support this guy? They're
those people.
Ones bringing these, like, little cases of JD Vance's semen with them, like fake semen, obviously, to these...
I mean, we hope.
To these speeches, and they bring him, and they're like, here's...
Are you sure that Walz mixed it up, or is it possible that, like the person was saying, it's in fact IUF, not IVF? Are you sure that Walz mixed it up, or is it possible that this is a related treatment and Walz was going with the terminology that people are familiar with, whereas
JD Vance's family kit, because JD Vance is attacking the fertility of Governor Walz, so they're bringing these cases of like fake JD Vance semen to these speeches to show that he is fertile. I don't get it. I don't get it, and it's weird. Here, JD Vance again attacks Governor Walz and says, Tim Walz shouted, "Even when we don't fight," after Vice.
Okay, let's take a look at exactly what chat's talking about. I think I found it. I think I tracked it down. It's going to take a little while to load. Why is that? Oh my God, chat. I'm trying to speed run this stream. It is not going well for me so far. It is not good. I might set a world record tonight. Anyway, chat. Let's see.
And speaking of that, Governor Tim Walz and his wife Gwen have been very open about their struggle to have children. Well, now Minnesota's First Lady is clarifying which fertility treatment they actually used. So Gwen Walz says the couple used intrauterine insemination, or IUI, and not in vitro fertilization, commonly known as IVF.
So IUI, chat was wrong. It's IUI. No, just kidding.
Has really been at the center.
I mean, chat was close.
Of political controversy lately. Now, earlier this year, the
controversy. Yeah, it's hugely controversial.
Alabama Supreme Court ruled frozen embryos could be considered children under state law, which temporarily stopped.
So I guess the real question is, would Tim Walz's fertility treatment have been affected by the ruling of by rulings like this by the Republican Party's platform of certain Republicans to try to make this illegal?
To IVF procedures. Walz's team sent out a fundraising email in March titled Our IVF Journey, and has criticized Republican vice presidential candidate JD Vance for opposing a bill that would have guaranteed access to IVF nationwide.
Okay, well, there it is. I did find it. Anyway.
President Kamala Harris said, "When we fight, we win." Here, play this clip.
I just saw that. Did you see Kamala's convention speech? Well, that was smart of you for not seeing it, but I'm in this business. I have to. Now, Kamala Harris said, "When we fight, we win." This is one of her favorite taglines. And I don't know if you saw it, but then Tim Walz stood up and shouted, "And even when we don't fight." That's what Tim Walz said.
And then he tries to make another really lame joke about Vice President Kamala Harris showing up in a long red tie. Play this clip.
In fact, I've heard that for her debate in just a couple of weeks, she's going to put on a Navy suit, a long red tie, and adopt the slogan, "Make America Great Again." I think that's what... But we're not going to...
Yeah, this is some really kind of pathetic and just overall very, very weird stuff, folks. And so no wonder, if you noticed, all the MAGA people are trying to kind of push JD Vance out as well. It says now it's Trump, Vance, Kennedy, and they emphasize the Kennedy. By the way, just take a look at the front page of Drudge right now. Are MAGA rallies backfiring? Is cable news covering up his crazy? Yeah, it's another Drudge W right there. This time she, Vice President Kamala Harris, is the one driving the ratings. It's also this piece from The Guardian here. Are Trump's campaign rallies energizing his base or sowing doubt? Right there. I could just tell you, based on this JD Vance stuff right here, clearly sowing doubt. It's Donald Trump. Look at what he's posting today, Donald Trump. Photos on collecttrumpcards.com with random women who he claims bought his NFTs, which I do not fully think is accurate or real. So anyway, check that out. In good news, JP Morgan says the U.S. right now stands out as the only large economy in the world in which the GDP has risen faster than our estimated 2019 potential growth path would have anticipated. Oh, I got to show you this one too. JD Vance sent this email. "I'm writing to you this message, Ben. This could be my final message that I send you." Strange stuff. Strange stuff. I bet.
You're telling me, Ben Mycelis at the Midas Touch. You're telling me about the strange stuff. I've got another video for you. This is actually a historian weighing in on the possibility of replacing JD Vance with Robert F. Kennedy.
Former President Trump's running mate, Senator JD Vance, has been facing backlash over past comments on a variety of issues. Some are speculating Vance may not be the best choice for Mr. Trump's running mate. Republican senators are divided on the pick as well. The question becomes, can Trump change his mind? Presidential historian Rick Collins says he doesn't see Mr. Trump replacing Vance, as he knew who he was getting when he was selected. He says Vance has some early criticisms of the former president, but he is very much on board with Mr. Trump now. Collins says there are a few times in American history where a vice presidential candidate has been replaced.
One time was in 1972 when the Democratic nominee George McGovern selected initially U.S. Senator Tom Eagleton of Missouri, and then shortly after he was selected, it was revealed that Eagleton had suffered from depression and had checked himself into hospital a few times in the 1960s, had received electroshock therapy. When that came out, a firestorm was set off. There was great pressure on McGovern to drop Eagleton from the ticket. At first, McGovern dug his heels in, said I'm behind Eagleton 1,000%. And then a few days later, he dropped Eagleton from the ticket, and it was replaced by our Sergeant Shriver, who had been head of the Peace Corps and brother-in-law to President Kennedy and Senators Robert and Edward Kennedy.
Collins says the other time this happened was in 1912 when President William Howard Taft was running for re-election.
His running mate, his vice president, James Sherman, died 6 days before the election. And so they had to obviously find a replacement. They picked a fellow by the name of Nicholas Butler. He was a U.S. diplomat, president of Columbia University. And so he replaced Sherman on the ticket. In fact, Sherman's the last vice president to die in office. He died of kidney failure. It really didn't help. Taft was decisively beaten by Woodrow Wilson.
Wait. Collins says if former President Trump decided to change his running mate, it would need to be before the Democratic National Convention.
Okay. So now this is old. I didn't realize this. This is old. So why is that?
Mr. Trump's safest option would be to go back to the list of original contenders, which included Governor Burgum. Collins says there would be a lot of backlash if this happened and would also reflect on Mr. Trump's judgment. Former President Trump's campaign has said Mr. Trump is thrilled with his decision on Vance.
Of course they did. Of course they did. Boy, somebody in chat saying, I love the line when Trump met Logan Paul and said, this is what we're reduced to. I feel the same about the Republican Party. I forget Drudge existed. Yeah, Drudge is pretty old school, right? I don't know how relevant it is anymore. Pretty sure the Pope said years ago that the Roman Catholic Church is fine with IVF, and then Look Bovine Googles it and says the Catholic Church officially opposes in vitro fertilization or IVF, and the Catechism of the Catholic Church states that IVF is morally unacceptable. Okay, so get the comfy chair. The comfy chair hasn't arrived, chat. I'm still waiting for the comfy chair to arrive. Did you miss the Vorse lore? You did not. You did not. We're gonna talk about Vosh a little later on tonight. Vosh got trolled by a infamous walking political compass meme named JREG or Drag, I guess. I hate saying J. I feel like I'm being trolled when I say, it's like saying X, right? I don't say X because that's like Elon trolling me. It's Twitter, right? And I don't say Drag because it's like JREG trolling me. It's JREG. I don't care how many times he pronounces it Drag. I feel like it's got to be JREG. It's got to be JREG. And yeah, indeed, JREG was mixing and, and hanging out with the progressive victory people in the worst faith possible. He literally did that canvassing for Jamal Bowman in order to make a video making fun of progressive victory. And I mean, look, it wouldn't be a big deal because, yeah, the Joker's going to laugh at you. JREG is a Joker. Joker laughs. The Joker's going to laugh at you, right? That's going to happen. It's not that big of a deal. What it shows, though, is horrible judgment. Horrible judgment, horrible gatekeeping, which, yeah, you probably, if you're, a political PAC organizing things like canvassing, you probably do need to do a little gatekeeping. You probably want to make sure that JREG is not, sneaking in to fucking meme on you. And it says bad things about the organization. It says bad things about their ability to recognize when they are being fucking made fun of. And that's what JREG was doing in there. Every single bit of JREG's presence in there was meant to ridicule and make fun of. And I can't imagine that he was doing a lot of good in terms of the actual canvassing itself. So we'll take a look into that a little bit later. What else do we have in terms of this? I do have more. Okay, so is JD Vance going to be replaced? That's the question that everybody's asking. Now that's a month old as well, right? So a lot of these videos that I'm finding about him possibly being replaced are from a while ago. It may be too late. It may be too late.
Look, I think this was the pick that Trump was going to make if he felt confident of victory in November. You and I discussed this. There were picks that were more unifying in terms of bringing the entire Republican Party together, including the old guard Reagan wing, whose votes matter. And then there were votes that were more geared toward where the party has gone under Trump. Vance is that pick. And I think the only issue with his comments is that if your goal is to persuade, and as Haley Barbour, famous RNC chairman, likes to say, grow the party, then you want to persuade and make everybody feel as though you're speaking to them. Sarcasm doesn't work in that case.
Did the campaign know about this stuff? Had they figured this out in the vet and calculated it into their decision?
Well, the Trump campaign certainly did their vetting process, and they chose JD, as they should. He's a wonderful candidate to be on the ticket with President Trump this election cycle. And I'll just say this. The people that are voting for President Trump, they love that sarcasm. That's what they live on. And so I think it's no surprise that you'll get a little bit of that from JD. And the media smear campaign against him has been going since the day we announced he would be on the ticket. That's not a surprise either. So, you know, the Democrats this week have spent their time trying to dismiss the border czar title from Harris's background. We know that she has to claim that, just like she has to claim the entire Biden-Harris record as her own. They had a huge problem in the beginning of their ticket as well.
So yeah, this is just a look back at a month ago, and the fact that this discussion was actually going on a month ago, just like it's going on now, without even a possible replacement. Now they're talking about Burgum as that was the person that was mentioned as being a replacement for JD Vance. I feel like Nikki Haley, Glenn Youngkin. There's a number of people that would probably benefit the Trump campaign to replace JD Vance with. However, as was said, you know, it would also ruffle some feathers too, not the least of which being Peter Thiel's, JD Vance's paymaster, JD Vance's Silicon Valley, okay, let's try to find a better term for this than that. Former boss and potential, person that JD Vance is kind of working on behalf of, represents in terms of an emissary to the Trump campaign. And the reason very likely that Donald Trump chose JD Vance because of his closeness to Peter Thiel.
Her numbers were very, very low. So, you know, this is not something that is unusual for a ticket.
Yeah, and to be fair, that all of a sudden when you get on the primetime stage, it gets a little bit different. David, you and I both see this. And running for Senate's way different than running for president in a general election. Anthony Scaramucci, did you guys work together at the White House?
We did not. He was only there for 10 days.
10 days. Well, or 2 years. Right.
I was there for 3 years.
One Scaramucci. Here he was on CNN.
He may or may not make it to November 5th, JD Vance.
You think Trump could maybe replace him?
I do, yes. I mean, that's what The Apprentice is all about, Caitlin. Of course, I've had that experience with Donald Trump. I do think he could. It's just a question of how many Scaramucci's JD is going to last.
Oh, God.
David, this has not...
I mean, I think that's silly. On the one hand, you never put anything past Donald Trump. On the other hand, we have seen vice presidential picks come roaring out of the gate only to have troubles later. Sarah Palin is one such example. JD Vance, as you just mentioned, he ran in a red state. The toughest race he had was really a Republican primary. All he had to do in the general election was get known. So this is a brand new experience for him.
Oh, he got known. This is a month ago, chat. Remember, they don't know about the couch fucker thing. They don't know about like JD Vance's, like how bad his approval rating ends up being. They don't know any of that stuff.
He has an opportunity to get his sea legs under him. And once he does, let's see how he does. He appeared on the debate stage in those.
He got those sea legs, all right. He got those Mountain Dew legs.
Senate primary debates to be very adept, very canny. And all it's going to take is one good debate to make everybody eat their words. Ultimately, this race is about Donald Trump versus the vice president. Some people may want to scapegoat JD Vance as the problem. But if there's any problem in this campaign, if there's a problem, and I'm not saying there is,
I'm not saying there's a problem. I'm just saying if there's a problem.
All about the top of the ticket. It's not about the running mate.
I think you and I can both agree, though, or maybe all three of us can.
Or it could be both. Or it could be both.
That the races we all saw it a week ago, this would be Friday night after the RNC, after Donald Trump's speech, on and on and on, looked vastly different and vastly better for Donald Trump than it does right now.
Well, that started arguably after the CNN debate, right? So you saw a rise with all of the support of the Trump ticket, even before we made the announcement with JD added to it. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that. But of course, Harris is going to have a little bump as soon as the announcement came. They really haven't had a candidate running for months now, and the people have not been behind Biden for months now. So of course, they're going to see some support for her. I don't see that lasting.
This is a month ago. Deputy Director of Strategic Comms in Trump's White House. All right. And I gotta fix it. It's not a problem for you if you're still watching me, right? You're still seeing me on shorts. But it's the other stream. I gotta hit stop here. I gotta do a few things in the background here. Let's pull this up as soon as I can, as quickly as I can. That's really annoying when that happens. Really frustrating too. Okay, update that. Make sure I got the right things. Okay, we're ready to go. So, yeah, for the people that were watching me on the full scale stream, their stream went down, but it should be coming back up any second now. Let's hope. There might be a few things that I need to do in the background. Sorry about this, chat. In fact, let's just like let this play while I work on this.
Right now, he's back into social media posts, personal attacks against Kamala Harris, on and on and on. He's not talking about issues anymore.
Well, to be fair, I think the left started the personal attacks against JD, and he wants to have his running mates back, as he should. But Kamala Harris cannot get away from her record, and her record is very clear. A nonpartisan poll has her as the most liberal.
Most liberal senator in 29. Then they took it down.
Exactly. Most liberal senator.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find new.
The most liberal senator ever. Okay, so I got another video for you to watch while I try to get everything up in the background. I can find it here. Here we go. David Pakman, again, I'm sorry for the...
Welcome, everyone. After months and months and months, it feels like years of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. saying, I'm in it to win it. I'm in it till the end. Both Biden and eventually Harris and Trump are not what I stand for. I would never endorse them. I would never run alongside them. No, no, no. My principles and my motivations are pristine and unimpeachable and perfect. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has suspended his campaign and endorsed Donald Trump in a complete and totally bonkers gong show rally. We'll get to that later. But the important thing is that this sets up a fascinating showdown with Donald Trump's beleaguered vice presidential pick, JD Vance. JD Vance serves no purpose on this ticket right now that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has endorsed Trump, in the sense that RFK Jr. is a better speaker than JD Vance. He's more charismatic than JD Vance. It's at least theoretically conceivable that RFK Jr. would bring Trump some new votes, although it doesn't seem like it's that many. But remember that JD Vance brings Trump 0 new votes. And every interview Vance does, it almost seems like he's trying to sabotage Trump's campaign. So just to get caught up, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. saying last week that he is throwing his support to Donald Trump.
3 great causes drove me to enter this race in the first place, primarily. And these are the principal causes that persuaded me to leave the Democratic Party and run as an independent, and now to throw my support to President Trump.
Now, in throwing that support to the failed former president Donald Trump, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. did want to clarify he's not ending his campaign. He's only suspending it, that there are 10 states he's identified where being there would hurt Trump. So he seems to be acknowledging that the vast majority of support is coming from otherwise MAGA people, which is crazy given the way this whole thing started. But he says,
Kat, I'm going to pee really quick and I'll be right back. And then we're going to talk about what we're doing tonight.
I want everyone to know that I am not turning.
The furry one asks, how far are we along in the dono goals? We're at 1% and we also lost our poll. So we're going to have to figure out what to do from there. I'll be right back. I need to pee.
Terminating my campaign.
Thank you for sticking with me.
No.
I am simply suspending it and not ending it.
Right. Don't anyone believe for a moment that this campaign is over.
My name will remain on the ballot in most states. If you live in a blue state, you can vote for me without harming or helping President Trump or Vice President Harris. In red states, the same will apply. I encourage you to vote for me. And if enough of you do vote for me, and neither of the major party candidates win 270 votes, which is quite possible, in fact, today
it's actually insanely unlikely. The scenario he's talking about is what is it, 0.1%? It's not plausible.
our polling shows them tying it 269 to 269.
Sure, bet on it.
And I could conceivably still end up in the White House in a contingent election.
Yeah, right.
But
so anyway, I think you get the point. As if that wasn't delusional enough, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. also said while announcing that he's bailing that in an honest system, he would be easily winning and becoming president.
Labors. Now, in an honest system, I believe that I would have won the election. In a system, the kind that my father and my uncles thrived in, a system with open debates, with fair primaries, with regularly scheduled debates, with fair primaries, and with a truly independent media untainted by government propaganda and censorship. In a system of
so very relieved.
And election boards, everything would be different. After all, the polls consistently showed me beating each of the other candidates, both in favorability and also in head-to-head matchups.
So much cope.
Yeah, you know, there's so many ifs there. It's sort of like,
look, if we ran the the election like 1,000 times over, this guy would still never win. This guy, you could rerun the election for 10,000 years, and RFK Jr. would never win.
If my grandmother had wheels, she would be a bicycle. But that's not the reality that we live in. And as is often the case with RFK, he gets off into some pretty extreme stuff and felt, I guess, the need or the desire to talk about puberty while announcing that he's endorsing Trump.
America's puberty rate is now occurring at age 10 to 13, which is 6 years earlier than girls were reaching puberty in 1900. Our country has the earliest puberty rates of any continent on the earth. And no, this isn't because of better nutrition.
Well, it's partially because of better nutrition, but it's also not unique to the U.S. So just because whenever RFK starts talking about medical stuff, things become completely radioactive, and his supporters will write to me saying I didn't actually address the puberty thing. It is true that the U.S. is seeing earlier puberty in some groups, but it's not only the United States that is seeing that. We've observed it in a lot of countries. Vaccines or something.
Oh my God. Aaron Patton says RFK Jr. is why you shouldn't name your child after yourself. Yeah, he's ruined the RFK name. That's true.
Thing that have been looked at very close.
Can you imagine if like RFK was somehow still alive?
Because it was so peaceful up here, but now there are freaking communist invading radicals.
As I'm sure he is in QAnon lore, if RFK was actually still alive, and he basically changed his name. Right, that's what I imagine happening, chat. Omega Star, thank you for the gift sub to Song is Out to Lunch. Song is out to lunch. You've just been weaseled. You've just been weaseled. That's a good thing. And that's a really good thing, especially considering that as if I haven't missed my count, if I haven't severely missed like a whole bunch of stuff that happened, maybe while I was gone, we are like 7% of the way, but that's 6% more of the way that we were before Omega Star gifted that sub. So thank you, Omega Star. And yeah, I'm dealing with a really strange night tonight. Let's see, what am I missing? Do I just refresh this? Hopefully that works.
For safety, including long-term impact, and we have no scientific evidence linking vaccines to the early onset of puberty. That's one favorite of the folks that talk about early puberty.
And that's generally with somebody like RFK, what he's probably talking about.
Now, environmental exposure, like exposure to endocrine disrupting chemicals.
Although Miskatonic is proposing that maybe it's about age of consent.
Sometimes you find them in plastics or cosmetics. That's been suggested as a possible contributor, and it's being studied. Maybe there is something there. I'm not at this point able to say, but there are studies from Europe and China and other regions that report a similar trend to puberty moving earlier. And that suggests it's a global phenomenon, and lifestyle factors very well may be a factor. Nutrition is believed to play some role. It's just not unique to the United States. So why we ended up talking about puberty when you announced that you're supporting Trump, I don't know. But the takeaway question is, what's JD Vance's role in this campaign now when there is a far more charismatic, knowledgeable, and possibly electorally beneficial person that looked much more comfortable up on that stage with Trump than JD Vance ever has. So we'll get to that rally a little bit later. Here's the thing about birthdays. They happen all year.
Here's the thing about this segment. I don't think it's relevant to what we're looking at. So yeah, again, sorry that I had to go to David Pacman for this. This is like just who has the story. And I don't know how much we'll watch of this. This is a little bit old. Again, this is from I'm sorry, it's from a month ago.
This is Democracy Watch. Mark, I've gotten this question more than any other question, especially in light of how poorly JD Vance seems to the general electorate.
So we'll see if we can get some answers as far as, can JD Vance be replaced? And can my stream like come back after such a terrible blow, after going down right in the beginning of it, right, chat? That was awful.
Right now, are
we gonna be okay? Am I gonna be okay? Is the bonus content gonna be okay? The answers for these and more questions, I guess we'll find out.
Trump have JD Vance replaced? Are there any rules that prevent choosing a new VP candidate after they're officially nominated at their convention?
I mean, this guy has had the worst rollout of any candidate ever. I don't even just mean vice presidential candidate.
Yeah.
I mean, it is hard to imagine a worse pick for Donald Trump, who has done worse as his initial impression. I mean, let's set aside the fact that his policies are bonkers and the fact that he is attacking women who have cats. I don't even want to talk about what if you search on Twitter these days, you find about JD Vance.
Yeah.
But no, there's no way to get him off the ballot. There may not even be a way to get him off the couch. Okay, but let's just stick with the ballot.
Oh God, it's just not a good joke, right? You can't overuse the couch thing. You can't overuse the weird thing, or else it will stop working. Please, libs, please. Again, chat, if the stream ever goes down, understand that most likely I'm in the background trying to bring it back up. So all you got to do is go to the channel screen, go to the, click on my channel, and hit refresh until it comes back. That's like probably the best bet. You can always go over, as some of you did, to the short stream. That is valid too. You can usually, sometimes Twitter or Twitch gets put back up sooner. I don't know. I feel like your best bet is to either find the short stream or to wait until the stream comes back up, because it always will. And if you if you don't come back, if you don't look for it, then you may never find it. So
he is now the Republican nominee for Vice President of the United States. That paperwork the Republican National Committee has submitted to the states. He's on the ballot. Now, if he died or if he was incapacitated, some states allow for there to be a swapping out. There are some states that would say, that even if Vice President of the United States, find about JD Vance.
Yeah.
But no, there's no way to get him off the ballot. There may not even be a way to get him off the couch. Okay, but let's just stick with the ballot. Like, he is now.
Okay. So this is interesting. He is
Republican nominee for Vice President of the United States. That paperwork, the Republican.
So you could replace him. I think you could replace him, but he would still appear maybe on the ballot. It sounds like the ballots are. In fact, voting starts in some places in like 11 days, or I think even less. I think like 9 days, right? There's going to be some early voting available. So yeah, he's kind of on that ballot at this point.
National Committee has submitted to the states. He's on the ballot. Now, if he died or if he was incapacitated, some states allow for there to be a swapping out. There are some states that would say, that even if he just turned out to be a total embarrassment and withdrew, he could be replaced. But Donald Trump has no more power to kick him off. Like they are stuck with this guy. And I'm pretty sure that he's not leaving the ballot or the couch.
Well,
now understand, this is a month ago, right? This is a lawyer, and his legal opinion of this is that he can't get him off the ballot. Now, I don't know, does that mean that he can't get him, like, obviously, he could be replaced, right? But he's gonna be on the ballot, and any sort of negative that he adds to the ticket is gonna sort of be there along with that.
Just to game this out for
Airrock 121.
Airrock 121 super chatted $10. Elon's diaper situation.
Thank you, Airrock. That was a very well-timed super chat. We're up to 17%. We're up to 17%. This could happen yet. Tonight, chat. I also know that there's gaming frogs that are just ribbiting for some Fallout New Vegas. But that is a $10 super chat for the Elon diaper situation. The Elon diaper incident.
We're just not going to react to that.
To the couch. I will abstain from reacting to the narrative about what JD Vance may or may not have done with his couch. That's between you know what, I'm firm on this position. What happens between that man and his couch is up to him and his couch, and I, unlike Republicans, don't want to get in between any sexual fantasies.
I'll stand up for the couch. If that's what's needed. But yeah, thank you for the $10 super chat. It's a well-timed thing, considering what a weird. It's been a really weird stream, chat. I gotta admit, it's been a really weird stream. It started off weird. People were weird, and then the technical difficulties came and made it so that people, I don't know, chat. And it does this thing too where you don't get a notification when the stream goes down, it comes back up, right? It's kind of like YouTube only gives you so much notification juice. And if you've already, streamed, if you're streaming on Shorts and you've got one stream that's just gone on regular, right? Then it's kind of, I don't think it sends out the notifications the same way. So thank you for your super chat, Iraq. That could not have been better timed.
Between a man and his loved ones. I'll leave it at that. That's my diplomatic response. Just to game this out for a moment, what if JD Vance himself seeks to step aside, to drop out?
Yeah, like I said, then you get into this matrix of time and reason, right? So the earlier he decided to drop out, the more likely it is that some states would allow him to drop out and be replaced. It obviously gets progressively harder as you get closer to the election because ballots get printed, ballots get sent out, right? And so one of the things is when does it happen? The other question is, what's the reason for it happening, right? At one end of the spectrum, if he dies, And, I hope he doesn't. I mean that seriously. Like, I don't wish any ill on him. But, if a candidate dies, then a lot of states have permissive rules in that circumstances. Someplace below that is like incapacitated, and below that is just like, I feel like I'm a laughing stock and I no longer wish to run. The fewer states, right? Because it is a burden to the state after the candidates have been certified and the ballots have started to be printed. Now, in fairness, the Democratic National Convention hasn't taken place yet, so they have not yet had to submit their nominee. So ballots haven't yet started being printed. But JD Vance, so I'm going to give you this advice. You're really not popular. And there's probably nothing you can do about that, but just like sit on like a straight back chair. That's my advice.
That's good advice. Do you think that Donald Trump at this point regrets choosing JD Vance as his running mate?
Oh, he definitely regrets choosing JD Vance as his running mate for two reasons. First of all,
so now I'm seeing chat ask me about the RFK whale chainsawing incident. That was originally up. Oh my God, chat. That's what I just realized. That's what needs to be put back up is the poll. The poll is what's missing, right? We need to figure out how to do the poll somehow, even though the poll got taken down. And even though only half of the people who were in chat found their way back. I'm sad. I am sad. Like, I'll be honest, right? I don't know if Trump has thought about pulling JD Vance or JD Vance has thought about dropping out, but I thought about ending the stream right then and there. I don't know. That's like...
Donald Trump only chose JD Vance because he thought he was running against Joe Biden. Right? Like, let's just take all of the sort of fun out of this and just look at this as a straight analytical matter. Like, he thought JD Vance was the right matchup when he was running against Joe Biden. JD Vance makes no sense where he is running against Kamala Harris. I mean, Kamala Harris is a much more, and this is not a knock on President Biden, by the way. He's been a great president, but Kamala Harris has a range.
Wait, Bad Lefty is gesturing towards something. What is it? Just above the shelves in the background? Just above the shelves in the background? What are we looking at, Bad Lefty? Oh, look at his head. Wait, what? Yeah, I mean, that's his head. Real weird camera effect. It looks like a slice of his head is missing. Oh, okay. I mean, heads can be differently shaped. Skulls can be differently shaped. And I think that's most likely what we're dealing with. I do see what you're saying. It does look like
broader range.
He's like a bit of a Wojak, isn't he?
Skills in terms of public speaking and prosecuting the case against Donald Trump. And so if Donald Trump knew that this was going to be Harris, almost certainly he would have picked someone who would be a more effective speaker. I mean, JD Vance is not a compelling speaker. He is not a compelling deliverer.
Yeah, like I said, the choice of JD Vance was for two reasons. One of them is that Donald Trump was overly confident. He had basically thought that he was winning the race. He was sure that he was winning the race. Otherwise, he would have chosen somebody else. The other reason that he picks JD Vance is that JD Vance can provide that money through his connection to wealthy people in Silicon Valley, right? So it's for money and it is for, essentially overconfidence. That's why he picked Vance.
A message, and he runs very hard to the right. So I think he regrets that. The second thing, really quickly, Brian, is that Donald Trump doesn't like to be upstage.
Wait, both sides have it?
Donald Trump, if there's going to be a scandal,
I feel like there's a little bit more head on his right side, like his right, than on his left side.
He wants it to be about him, right? He doesn't want anyone else.
He's got a little less head on the left.
Taking the limelight. And I'm sure he's very unhappy right now. One thing Mike Pence was good about doing is he'd get like a fly on his head, but he'd otherwise like blend into the backdrop. And JD Vance is right now not doing that.
Man, whoever would have guessed that Donald Trump would have regret over not choosing Doug Burgum at this point.
Right? Yeah.
Now, far from being a boon to the ticket, do you think that Vance actually drags Trump down, considering he won Ohio, his own state, by a smaller margin than Donald Trump himself did?
Oh, yeah, there's no...
Look, Bovine says it's his skull. It is definitely his skull.
Question, he's going to drag Trump down. I actually think they probably assumed that when they were running against Biden, that this was not a candidate who is going to be accretive in the vote share, right? I mean, he is running... JD Vance is an unpopular figure. in an unpopular party. And so he was never going to add a state. He was never going to add a new segment of voters. But I think they thought they had that room. They now don't have that room, right? They are now running neck and neck with Vice President Harris. Donald Trump, by the time this weekend's over,
this is a month ago,
maybe trailing Kamala Harris in some of the critical swing states. And JD Vance is an anathema to that key block in the middle. He is also extremely motivating of younger voters and voters on the left who have to be motivated.
Yeah. And by the way, to all of those points, you've been hitting those hard in Democracy Docket, which is the free news outlet Mark founded to focus on everything voting in elections. So for those watching right now, to support the work that Mark and his team are doing, and also to get a raft of good information on a daily basis.
Wait, Trump is treating the election like an old-fashioned mafia-style bust-out? What's a bust-out?
Please make sure to sign up. I'll put the link right here on.
What's a bust-out, chat? Anyway, we need to do this. Right, this is an interview. It's the whole thing right here, maybe. I can't tell.
JD Vance, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Full interview, okay.
Thank you for having us here in Cincinnati. Let's start off with the Democratic National Convention.
Sure.
Some of what we heard this past week. Vice President Kamala Harris, in making her case, said that the tariff plans that Donald Trump is proposing will hurt the middle class. Here's what she said specifically, quote,
Sure.
He intends to enact what in effect is a national sales tax, call it a Trump tax, that would raise prices on middle-class families by almost $4,000 a year. Now, the estimates vary, but how do you respond to that charge that Trump's tariffs would hurt the middle class?
Yeah, so if you step back a little bit, Kristen, there's this whole thing that Kamala Harris did at the convention where she made a bunch of claims about what would happen and not enough actually reflection on what already happened, right? Because Donald Trump was already president. He used tariffs to bring manufacturing jobs back to our country, and I think he'll do it again. And he did it while keeping prices extremely low.
See, like, you gotta show me data. You can't just be like, he brought manufacturing jobs back. You need to show me data.
Low, because if you go back to the Trump presidency, we had 12,000 factories that were built during Donald Trump's presidency. Inflation never really ticked above 2% his entire administration. In fact, was sort of...
Chargoon super chatted $9.99. Get some rest when you need it, heart.
Oh my god, you're so sweet. That is such a sweet sentiment from chat. Chargoon, thank you so much for the $9.99 super chat. And also, when you super chat or any kind of donation, right? Anything, any sort of donation at all, make sure you know that, well, wait, actually, I don't have the poll up. That's what I need to do. Do we need to put the poll back, chat? Oh, God, bonus content. I don't know how to spell bonus. Bonus content. I put bonesis. I don't think bonesis is the way you spell bonus, all right? That's my spelling error right there. Did we change our mind, though? So, new JD signifier. No, JD signifier. I just did the Vosh thing. I'm looking at JD Vance. I'm thinking FD signifier. I said JD signifier. I said JD signifier. Ethan Hassan breakup. We're definitely doing that. Chat chooses violence. We're definitely doing that. Ethan diaper situation, Elon diaper situation. Wait, so the one thing that I'm wondering about is that, like, now I've got some people talking about the whale thing. Do we want to do the whale thing? Or should I just throw the whale thing in as bonus, right? Like, if we hit the dono goal, which, chat, we're like 83% away from that. I started streams super late. The stream's already gone down once. We lost a bunch of viewers. I'm posting cringe. I'm gonna lose subscriber. So the odds are against us, but we still stand a chance. There's no giving up. There's no giving in. We're playing for keeps. Okay. We're playing for keeps. It's not over till it's over. It's not over until we get it right. It's not over until we do an epic 80s music video to make people in the future cringe at our music video, right? It's not over. It's not over. But what I want to know, though, is, are you going to go my way in terms of the content? Are you going to vote my way in terms of the content? Am I just going to shout song lyrics at you? What am I even doing here, chat? What is even going on? I guess the one thing that I'm curious about is if people want to, yeah, I'll throw the whale head in for free. How about that? Here's the new poll. Boom. If we hit it, because the odds are against us, and because it would be so amazing if we hit the dono goal tonight, if we hit it, I am throwing in a free whale head, which comes with whale juices. Have you ever had whale juices before? Have you ever driven a car with a whale head on top of it? And there's whale juices coming out of the whale head, and they're coming into the windows. And so you've got to wear a plastic covering, and you got to put a plastic covering over your kids to make sure that the whale juice doesn't get on the kids. I'll throw that all in for free. The whale juice, the whale head, the chainsaw, the gleeful look in RFK Jr.'s eye. I will throw that all in for free if we hit the dono goal tonight. That's my promise.
Around 1.5% most of the time that he was president. So when Kamala Harris says, if we do the thing that Trump already did, it's going to be way worse than it was last time, I just don't think that makes a lot of sense.
Well, let's talk about Trump's record during his first term.
He's sitting in a very beta way. Can I say that? His posture, the way he's sitting, the way he's regarding his interviewer is like an entitled rich kid that is interviewing for a job that they thought that they wouldn't have to interview for, right? They thought that their name, they thought that their connections, they thought that their school, their network, all this stuff would get them the job. And that there would be no interviews, because why should they have to interview? They are obviously the candidate. It's like this weird, okay, so are you going to give me the job kind of thing? And it's actually weak. It's actually kind of weak.
Did impose rounds of tariffs, and it cost Americans nearly $80 billion in new taxes. Do you acknowledge that imposing more tariffs will ultimately cost consumers?
Well, what it really does is it penalizes importers from bringing goods outside the country into the country. And I think that's just a necessary thing. We know that China and a number of other countries are using effectively slave labor to undercut the wages of American workers. Donald Trump thinks that has to stop. And again,
yeah, it's a good thing that our country doesn't use any unpaid labor, right? Any forced prison labor. It's a good thing that our country doesn't do anything like that. That's only China. China is bad and communistic and authoritarian, and worst of all, chat, the worst thing about China is the dingus gambit. The dingus fucking gambit, okay? It's inexcusable, but thank you, Sasha G, for the, oh my god, it's a snappy lemon. It's a snappy lemon. It's a lemon head. Thank you for the lemon head super sticker. I have not seen that one yet. But I like it. I like it.
Kamala Harris is saying, Kristen, is that if you do this, you're somehow going to cause skyrocketing inflation. In reality, Donald Trump already did it. He brought a lot of jobs back, and it didn't cause inflation.
We experienced inflation after Donald Trump's presidency, right? Some of that inflation is probably due to supply chain problems. Some of that inflation is probably due to the stipend that Trump signed into law, right? And I'm not complaining about that policy, chat. I always get asked by Trump people in my chat, you can put that towards Fallout? I will put it towards Fallout. Oh my gosh, we got to do Fallout soon. What the fuck was I even saying? Now I'm confused. Oh my god, chat, what was I talking? I wish I could rewind myself. But so we did have inflation as a result of Trump's administration, right? And like I said, some of it might be because of the stipend. The stipend is the one Trump policy that I actually kind of agree with. I think that Americans should probably, working Americans should probably get something from the government on a more regular basis. I feel like our social safety net has languished, and I'm all for, especially during a time when Americans are being asked to stay at home and to maybe not go to their job, and a lot of people's jobs are closed down, that stipend, that's a good policy, right? Now, I say that it's a good policy, and I say that that's the one Trump policy I can really get behind. Also knowing that it's not a normal policy that Trump would have enacted. Had it been any other situation, had his administration, his potential to get reelected not be on the line, had it not been that the situation, the COVID situation, sort of forced that on him, he wouldn't have done it. So I can't really applaud him too loudly for that, for that policy. But yeah, there's an example, if anybody ever asks, of a Trump policy that I approve of.
Cause consumers to pay more.
They just keep lying about who pays the tariff. They're like, China's going to pay it. We're going to make China pay for it, folks. We're going to put a big, beautiful tariff on all the goods that you're buying, and we're going to make China pay for it.
They paid more in taxes, $80 billion worth. Do you acknowledge that consumers ultimately will pay more if there are more tariffs imposed?
So economists...
Do you just acknowledge that?
No, I don't, Kristen, because I think economists really disagree about the effects of tariffs because there can be a dynamic effect, right? So what some economists...
I don't know. What's he expecting? That the tariff causes industrial production to be moved from other countries where it's cheaper to the United States so as not to pay the tariff, and that the increased economic activity is going to translate into immediate money in the pocket of the people, and that will more than offset the tariffs? Is that what he's trying to go with? This is copium. But not really, because he doesn't care. Trump and Vance know that the tariffs are a de facto tax on the working class, and that cutting income tax like they want to do is money in the pockets of the wealthy, of the idle elite, of the capitalists.
Will say is what you just said, that it will actually raise costs for consumers. But what other people say, and I think the record supports what
Glenn Best says, yes, so people like you get a real job. Glenn Best, that's really mean. That's really mean. And that's actually kind of fucked up. Do you really think that you're going to get out of the effects of the tariffs? Glenn Best, I got to know, okay? If you're a capitalist, all right? If you're in the upper class, if you're going to get your taxes cut by Trump, all right? Prove it to me, Glenn Best. Prove it to me right now with a generous $50 super chat. Let's see you put your money where your mouth is, Glenn Best. Unless you are going to get fucked over just like me. You're not in the top? Then why are you celebrating? Why are you celebrating the idea of having to pay like $3,000 more a year? If that's not going to be painful for you, then put that money in a super chat. Pass on the savings to me, Glenn Best.
This other view,
whose name sounds a lot like Glenn Beck. And I would suspect that if Glenn Beck was to make, I don't know, like a burner account on YouTube, that account might be named something like Glenn Best. I don't know.
is that it causes this dynamic effect.
It's like, oh, I don't want anybody to know I'm Glenn Beck here. Let me make it Glenn Best. There we go. Best. Nobody will guess. Nobody will guess. It's Glenn Best.
More jobs come into the country. Anything that you lose on the tariff from the perspective of the consumer, you gain in higher wages. So you're ultimately...
That's literally what he said. That's literally what he said. That is the most mind-numbed take I could possibly imagine. And that's literally what he said. That's literally what he said. Oh, from the inflation. You mean the inflation that came from the global supply chain issues and from the Trump stipend, the one policy of Trump that I actually really like? You mean that inflation? You mean the inflation that happened across the world from COVID? That's actually worse in other countries than it is in the United States? That inflation? Is that what we're talking about? I was just trying to check. I was trying to make sure. I need to make sure.
Much better off. Yep.
Yo, Glenn Best has got 1,500 and yeah, super chat me 1,500. That'll be fine. 15K. Make it 15K. 15K super chat, Glenn Best.
Take home pay, you have better jobs, and also we have more reliance because
we're shaking down chatters.
One of the things we learned during COVID, I don't, by the way, blame Democrats for this, but one of the things we learned during COVID, Kristen, is that if our supply chains are really brittle, if we depend on the Chinese to make too much of our stuff, then prices can skyrocket at a time of crisis.
Wait a minute. Is he going to acknowledge that that was the reason for the inflation? That was a piece of the inflation. So chat, just basically speaking on a very basic level, all right, inflation is affected by several things. One of these things is the goods available, right? And things like supply chain problems reduce the number of goods available, right? That's one part of the equation. The other part of the equation is the amount of money that is chasing those goods available. And when you do a policy like Trump did, which I think was a good policy, this is the one Trumpian policy I approve of. This is the one Trumpian policy I give my seal of approval to, right? Was the stipend. When you do stuff like that, then yeah, now there's more money chasing less goods. Hence, what do we have? We have inflation. We have inflation. And so what does the Fed do about that? The Fed raises interest rates to cut off that money supply to make sure that there's less money chasing the same amounts of goods. The supply chains come back, and we have what we have now, which is the inflation has abated, and it has not abated everywhere in the rest of the world.
The economists who say that tariffs are bad, they don't take that into account. And we've all learned it the hard way.
And it is economists across the board, really.
TK7076 points out that Biden has not ended the tariffs Trump put on China. Oh, are you telling me, TK1776, are you telling me that the Democrats are in some ways but a pale imitation of the Republicans? Are you telling me that there's a real downside to the Democratic Party, and that's because there's not enough daylight between them and the Republicans? Next, you're going to be telling me that Biden has adopted a Trumpian immigration policy.
I mean, the Wall Street Journal says economic data showed that Donald Trump's trade war with China did not achieve its objectives of reversing the declines in U.S. manufacturing or reshoring factory jobs. I hear what you're saying. It's a complicated picture, but just on that bottom line point, you can't guarantee that Americans won't wind up paying a penny more, can you?
Well, I think that what you can guarantee is that if you don't bring more manufacturing jobs back into this country, you don't make our supply.
But she just pointed out that you've tried this before and you didn't bring back manufacturing jobs. They did not come back.
Supply chains more stable, you're going to cause higher prices over the long term. I think that is what is absolutely true.
So he's basically saying that Americans need to, especially working Americans, need to suffer for Donald Trump's weird thing about China. It's the China virus. Donald Trump's got an issue with China. That's why he says it like that. That's why he sounds like he's passing a kidney stone whenever he says the word China. And American workers should just bear the cost of that, right? 15K is not enough. Let's add another 3 to 4K to that, right? Because that's what you'll be paying if Donald Trump gets elected and he implements his tariff plan. It's going to cost the average worker between 3K and 4K more. So I hope you've got that in your budget. I hope that chat's got and you're willing to give that up, because
You acknowledge they could wind up paying more.
What I acknowledge, Kristen, is that unless we bring more manufacturing jobs back to this country.
Yeah, Shiny Nix is pointing out we have good inflation numbers right now. True. It's greedflation that's destroying everything. Yeah, and that's when people take advantage of the perception of inflation, of the perception of higher prices, and they continue to charge higher prices even though their prices are not actually high. And you've seen a number of industries make record-breaking profits during this time period, right? So, you know, when you got industries making record-breaking profits, you know where that money came from. That was greedflation. That was the surcharge that they fucked us all over with, because we're paying more at the grocery store anyway, and we don't know the difference.
We are going to end up paying more in the long term. Remember, the whole promise, now, again, this was a bipartisan thing. My own party was as wrong about it as Democrats were, and Donald Trump was right about it. What they said is that if you shipped all of our manufacturing to East Asia and to Mexico, Americans would pay lower prices. Well, here we are now, and Americans are paying higher prices. And just one more thing on this, Kristen, because it's really important to go at what Kamala Harris actually said in her convention speech.
Again, I told you why we're paying higher prices. And listen, I'm being very charitable by not faulting Trump in his 4 years in office between 2017 and 2021. I'm being very charitable for not faulting Trump for that, right? Because very likely some of that inflation is due to his mismanagement of COVID, if I'm being real. But I don't know how much. So it feels weird to say that, right? I have a feeling that regardless of what happened, regardless of who was in the White House, there was going to be some inflation, right? Just by the very nature of what inflation is. Greater amount of money out there in the economy chasing fewer goods, right? That's the recipe for inflation. I think that you were going to get some of that anyway, right? So if he wasn't a lying asshole, I would, I guess I just wouldn't mention it, right? Yeah, is he responsible for some of the inflation? Probably. But since I can't quantify that and I can't, I can't show you the math on that, then I kind of feel like, well, okay, it's not really a big thing to bring up. But when he's trying to weaponize inflation the way that he does, when he's trying to blame stuff that happened during his administration on Biden and now on Harris, I'm a lot less charitable.
She says that she wants to stand up to China on behalf of American workers. If you're not willing to impose tariffs on companies that are...
So we should implement price controls like the Soviet Union. Yes. I'm going to Giga Chad that. Yes. Yes. We should implement price controls like the Soviet Union. Or how about we just ban gouging people? How about that? How about if we just ban price gouging? You okay with that, TK? Or do you want the free market to continue to take care of us like it's been? Do you want some of this? Do you want some more of this free market activity where you have to pay like 4 times as much for your eggs? How is that treating you? How's the free market treating you right now?
Manufacturing in China, using slave labor in China, you're not standing up to the Chinese, and Americans are really going to suffer.
And on pricing and...
No, Americans are suffering from Trump's fucking psychic war with Xi Jinping, trying to out tough Xi Jinping, trying to out dictator Xi Jinping. That's what Americans are suffering for. He wants to get one over on Xi. That's why Americans are suffering.
Prices right now, inflation obviously at its lowest level since 2021. But let's move on. Robert F. Kennedy, the big news yesterday.
There we go. There we go. Will he be replacing you? Please ask JD Vance this question.
Very big news.
He suspended his campaign, announced he's endorsing Donald Trump. He is also known as someone who has blamed vaccines for autism, antidepressants for school shootings, and recently said, quote, he won't take sides on what happened on 9/11. Do you have any hesitation about accepting his endorsement?
No, Kristen, I don't, because we're going to disagree on issues, right? There are things that Robert Kennedy has said that I disagree with. I'm sure there are things that he said, or that I've said, excuse me, that he's going to disagree with. But I think what his endorsement represents is that Donald J. Trump's Republican Party is a big tent party. I was raised by 2 grandparents who are sort of classic blue dog Democrats. They believed in having a border. They believed that you shouldn't have censorship in the United States of America. They believed in common sense economic policies. They may have disagreed with Donald Trump about tax policy, but they believed in some fundamental American values. And I think what RFK's endorsement really shows is that the Kennedy Democrats are actually more at home in the Republican Party of Donald Trump. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris's party, higher prices, doing nothing to fight back against the Chinese, to say nothing of a wide open border, that is not JFK's Democratic Party. It's not.
No, we need wide open borders. We need wide open spaces. Somebody said that once in a song, and so it must be true.
RFK's Democratic Party. We're thrilled to have the Kennedy Democrats where they belong.
Well, and some in the Kennedy family.
What?
The Kennedy Democrats are actually more at home in the Republican Party of Donald Trump. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris's party, higher prices, doing nothing to fight back against the Chinese, to say nothing.
Oh, wait, but you're bitching about you're bitching about her doing something about price gouging. That's communism. But you're going to complain about the higher prices that Trump caused. Really? Really?
of a wide open border. That is not JFK's Democratic Party. It's not RFK's Democratic Party. We're thrilled to have the Kennedy.
Double Dostoevsky says, is it just me or can I see panic swirling behind JD's eyes as he tries to answer pointed questions with his dialogue tree of canned talking points? I think you're seeing something. Like I said, if you look at his posture, he's not projecting confidence. He is projecting entitlement and arrogance and a lot of stuff that people sometimes mistake for confidence, but it's not. He's not projecting confidence.
Democrats where they belong.
Well, and some in the Kennedy family.
Well, the whole thing about the border, why do we need wide open borders? Because it's a song, Insanitology, which is an awesome name, by the way. Because it's in a song. No, So here's the deal, all right? If you look on a map, you will find lines. They're drawn in a lot of places, right? You look at a map of the US, they're drawn between states. If you look at the map of the world, they're going to be drawn between nations. And if you go to where that line is on the map, you might be surprised to find that the Earth is not stained black there. There's not actually a line there. It is a treaty between the United States and Canada that says our border exists on the 45th parallel or whatever it is, right? And then somebody estimates where that is, and that's where the map. So what I'm telling you is that the map is literally not the territory. There's two different things, right? So you got lines on the map, you got different countries, and you got immigration. You got people traveling from one place to the other. Now, they don't do this randomly. They don't do this for no reason. You know, if I asked you to pick up your stuff, pick up your life, and move to another country, that would be an imposition on you. You wouldn't be like, oh, joy, let me, you know, deal with this headache, right? That would be a pain in your ass, right? Same thing for immigrants. Same thing for immigrants. If they are picking up their life and they're moving it to another country, there's a reason for that, right? There's a reason. There's something going on in their country that's not good that they need to get away from. So if you really want to look at immigration and the reason that immigration rates might rise and fall, it actually has to do with the material conditions in different countries around the world. What's going on in that country? Now, some of that stuff that might be going on in other countries is just like their shit. It's just what they're doing, right? That's just them. And some of the stuff, when you're talking about the Western Hemisphere, when you're talking about Latin America, some of that stuff that's going on in those countries is due to the role of the United States as a global hegemon, is due to the amount of power that the United States has and how it exerts that power. Let's take a case in point. Have you ever heard of Venezuela? You might call this country various different names like Vuvuzela, but it's actually named Venezuela. Venezuela is a country that the United States has attempted coups on multiple times, the most recent of those times being under the presidency of Donald Trump. So in other words, his foreign policy was to remove their leader and replace that leader with our dude, right? That was Donald Trump's policy. Now, this policy fell apart. It didn't work. It didn't succeed. It was a very embarrassing failure, all right? They wanted to take out Venezuela's leadership and replace it with the leadership that we wanted, and they weren't able to do that. So what did Donald Trump do after that? Well, he imposed punitive sanctions on Venezuela that caused the country to experience an economic crisis. Hence, the movement of people from Venezuela to the United States. So your policy prescription, Mr. or Miss, or whatever honorific you go by, your policy prescription is to hermetically seal this border, is to take that map where you see a black line on there and make that black line a reality. Make it an impenetrable reality, right? Put a wall all over there. Patrol that area. Make sure that nobody gets in and nobody gets out, right? That's your policy prescription. Whereas my policy prescription would be something like a pathway to citizenship and better foreign policy where we're not immiserating other countries and then blaming those immigrants when they show up on our doorstep. Because that's literally what happened. That's literally what happened. But thanks for playing.
Family have stepped forward to say that they sharply disagree with this endorsement. But let's just go back very quickly. He says he isn't taking sides on 9/11. Do you agree with that statement?
Well, of course I don't agree with that, Kristen. Now, to be clear, I don't know what RFK actually said there. Maybe there was additional context. Of course, you actually have to see what people say before you agree or disagree with it. I certainly have taken sides in 9/11. I'm the pro-America side. I don't think that we should have been attacked, and I certainly think hitting back against the terrorists was justified. I don't know what RFK said there, but what
Hitting back. We were just hitting back against the terrorists, right? That's why tens of thousands are dead in Iraq, because we had to hit back against the terrorists. The terrorists weren't in Iraq, JD. The terrorists were not in Iraq. The terrorists weren't from Afghanistan either. The terrorists were from Saudi Arabia, a country that we did not hit back against, strangely.
I do know is that RFK said a lot of very interesting and important things that the Democratic.
I mean, I'll give you the interesting, right? In fact, we even have another, poor FD. Wait, what happened with FD? Oh, because I accidentally called FD JD. Look, Bosch was the first person to do that. And again, this is also winning. Chat, look, I got a little bonus content on the bonus content for you. Like I said, we are at 20% of that dono goal. It is going to be a very steep uphill battle to try to get some extra content out of me tonight. However, because of the significance of the challenge, because of the technical failures of this stream, and because of my own personal lateness to stream, I'm willing to offer you a bonus to the bonus content, right? So right now, people are voting for the new FD signifier video by 44%. We've got Ethan and Hassan breakup explanation at 22%. We got Elon diaper situation also at 22%, and chat chooses violence at 11%, right? So that's what the votes are for. And but what I'm saying is that if we actually hit this bonus goal, right, we're 80% away from it. We're 20% of the way towards it, right? 80-20 in a bad way. Right, so it's not going great right now, but if we somehow miraculously hit this dono goal, I'm gonna include bonus content, which yes will include a whale's head, yes will include a chainsaw, yes will include special whale juices that may drip down your car and into the windows were you to affix said whale head to the top of a car, right? I'm willing to throw all that and more in, including a gleeful look in the eyes of RFK as he saws the whale head off. I'm willing to throw all that in if we somehow hit the dono goal tonight. So just to let you know where we're at.
Party has become too pro-censorship, that the Democratic Party, especially in the wake of COVID, became really anti-freedom and anti-child. I mean, you have Democrats saying that we should be masking toddlers in their schools, even though we knew it caused developmental disabilities. I agree with RFK that that was crazy.
Well, to be fair, there was a lot of information that scientists were grappling with as it came in, and masks were perceived to stop the spread of the disease. Let's move on.
Totally fair.
Yeah.
But the one thing before we move on that I would say on that is there were important leaders. Donald Trump was among them. RFK was among them, who were saying some of this stuff is crazy. And if we had
Who was in charge of the country, chat? Can somebody remind me? Because I keep forgetting, right? COVID really started hitting in 2020, right? Who was the president? Who was the president? Was it Joe Biden? Because it was 2020, and a presidential term is like 2016 to 2020 and 2020 to 2024. Is that how things work? Or do the presidential terms actually extend through the next year? And is it more like 2017 to 2021 and 2021 to 2025 and 2025 to 2020? Which one is it, chat? Which one is it? Who was president? Who was president? Because this would be crazy if the president was actually Donald Trump, and JD Vance is here saying Donald Trump was one of the ones saying that, you know, this thing with the toddlers, they're putting the masks on the toddlers. I don't like it. It's going to cause developmental issues. Tell me what developmental disorders masks on kids cause. I think he's pulling it out of his ass. I think he's making it the fuck up. Preprint in medical journals by epidemiologists with decades of experience. RFK versus RFK saying this is crazy. Yeah.
Listen to them. I think our kids would have been much better off in the wake of the pandemic.
If we had listened to Donald Trump, who could not have been the president at the time, right? It was clearly Joe Biden. Or was it Barack Obama? Or was it Hillary Clinton? Who was the president in 2020, chat? It was a long time ago. It's not exactly a year that I want to remember. It's not a great year. Who was president? Oh my gosh, chat. It looks like it was Donald Trump. So indeed, Donald Trump was not just a spectator sitting on the sidelines. Donald Trump was the checks notes president of the United States of America, and to this republic for which we stand. One nation under QAnon conspiracy theories, such as masks causing developmental disorder.
I mean, scientists did show that masks help to stop the spread of the disease. Let's talk about another big issue.
Disabilities for toddlers, right? We have to be able to balance this stuff. And I think the way that RFK struck that balance was much smarter, unfortunately, than the way.
Yeah, how did RFK strike that balance? Don't bet. That's a beautiful baby you've got there, ma'am. Make sure not to vaccinate it. Oh my God.
Let's talk about another big issue that was talked about at the Democratic National Convention. It's being talked about on the campaign trail, abortion.
Sure.
Democrats made the case this week and beyond this week that Donald Trump, if elected, will impose a federal ban on abortion if he wins. Now, Donald Trump says he won't, but can you commit, Senator, sitting right here with me today, that if you and Donald Trump are elected, that you will not impose a federal ban on abortion?
I can absolutely commit that, Kristen, and Donald Trump has been as clear about that as possible. I think it's important to step back and say, what has Donald Trump actually said on the abortion?
Do you realize that in saying that, see, okay, so people say that she was tough on him. I don't think she was tough enough, right? He's got so much wiggle room with that question. We will not impose a total abortion ban. So in other words, if he imposes an abortion ban with certain exceptions, even if those exceptions are like onerous to prove, right? Even if functionally it is a total ban, he hasn't lied to you. This is why yeah, I don't think she's tough enough.
Question, and how is it different from what Kamala Harris and the Democrats have said? Donald Trump wants to end this culture war over this particular topic. If California wants to have a different abortion policy from Ohio, then Ohio has to respect California and California has to respect Ohio. Donald Trump's view.
How about this? You want to end this culture war issue? We say that when life begins is a question that different people answer in a different way. And there's no objective correct answer that, you know, the smartest person out there can impose on the rest of us. So, given that it's a tricky question, maybe we should leave it up to the person in whose body the pregnancy has occurred. Maybe the pregnant person themselves is the arbiter who should decide, instead of JD Vance's theory, instead of Donald Trump's theory that your state should decide before you. That if you happen to live in a red state, oh my God, I'm sorry, you're kind of fucked. You're kind of fucked. You don't have the ability. We will force you. We will force you to give birth. We will force you to give birth. It's not your choice, right? I feel like it's a lot more, it makes a lot more sense to, you know, respect the person who is pregnant and allow them to weigh those options themselves.
Is that we want the individual states and their individual cultures and their unique political sensibilities to make these decisions, because we don't want to have a nonstop federal conflict over this issue. The federal government.
Why would it be a nonstop federal conflict if it weren't for busybodies trying to impose their will on everybody else, trying to tell other people who are pregnant how they are supposed to deal with their own freaking body?
Ought to be focused on getting food prices down, getting housing prices down.
What the fuck is he talking about? Yeah, stop bitching about the fact that you're forced to carry potentially like the baby of someone who violated you against your will, right? Why focus on something like that when the prices of food is high? But then when we say, yeah, we're going to do something about that, we're going to make laws against price gouging, he's like, price controls, Soviet Union.
Issues, of course, where Kamala Harris has been a total disaster.
Boo-boo-zella.
So I think Donald Trump is right. We want the federal government to focus on these big economic and immigration questions. Let the states figure out their own abortion policy.
Let me just
fuck over and fuck over pregnant people living in those states, right? I'm sorry, your state has decided you have no rights. You have no rights. Do you want to maybe get in your car and leave your state and go to another place? Too bad. The cops will fucking literally pull you over. You will have to account for your you will have to track your periods, because the state now has an interest in if you become pregnant and what the outcome of that pregnancy is.
follow up with you a little bit.
Can you prove that you had a miscarriage? Can you prove it?
On that point, because I've been talking to Republicans, including Senator Lindsey Graham just last week, who've made it very clear that if Donald Trump is elected, if you are elected, they will continue to press this point. Senator Graham said to me, I'm going to keep saying that there should be a federal ban. If such a piece of legislation landed on Donald Trump's desk, would he veto it?
Well, I think it'd be very clear he would not support it. I mean, he said that explicitly. Yeah, I mean, if you're not supporting it as the president of the United States, you fundamentally have to veto it.
So he would veto a federal abortion ban?
I think he would. He said that explicitly that he would.
He's such a weasel.
I don't think he's ever said explicitly he would. He said that to you?
Lindsey Graham, Kristen, I would be surprised. I mean, again, I need to see the context on what Lindsey Graham said, because Lindsey Graham himself has not advocated a federal abortion ban. Lindsey Graham has advocated a federal minimum standard. Now, to be clear, that is not Donald Trump's.
Oh, there we go. There we go. That's not an abortion ban. That's not a. See, this is what he's doing. This is what he's doing. Anything short of an absolute and total ban, in his mind, is not a federal abortion ban.
Donald Trump disagrees with Lindsey Graham.
This is why you got to pin this guy down. He's a weasel.
On this. But no Republican, at least no Republican with any reasonable power, is saying that we should have a complete national abortion ban. I haven't heard that from any of my colleagues. And to be clear, Donald Trump...
See, there we go. There we go. He defined it. He defined it. Like, I fucking called it, chat. I told you exactly how he's trying to weasel. I told you exactly how his weasel works. Right? He now goes on to clarify that he means a complete and total ban with no exceptions. So anything short of that, even like I said, if those exceptions are onerous to prove and in practical terms can never be proven, right? That's not a national abortion ban. So he hasn't lied to you, even though he is deceiving you, even though he is 100% a weasel.
I think has staked his position and made it very explicit. He wants this to be a state decision. States are going to make this determination themselves.
All right, let's talk about women voters more broadly. The Census Bureau estimates there are...
Rob Bob says, Trump says he will leave it to the state. How about we leave it to the pregnant person? How about we do that? How about you want to end this culture war issue forever? Leave it with the person carrying the pregnancy. Let them decide.
22 million women between the ages of 20 and 40 who, for whatever reason, do not have children. What do you say to those women who hear some of your comments, including the childless cat lady comments, which you've been asked about, but who feel as...
So yeah, he's got a certain degree of scorn for her that's kind of transparent.
though you won't represent them.
Like, he's mad.
Well, I'd say, first of all, I will represent you.
And like I said, I don't think she's even gone that hard on him. I would have gone harder. I would have pinned him down. I would have dragged it out of him, what he's really saying in terms of that abortion ban, the denial that Donald Trump would be okay with an abortion ban. I would have dragged it right out of him.
I want to be the vice president for the whole country, and I want to represent everybody. And yes, I made a sarcastic comment years ago that I think that a lot of Democrats have willfully misinterpreted.
Again, we went over this yesterday. That's not what sarcasm is. That's not what sarcasm is, right? Like, sarcasm is if I'm trying to think of a good example. If I run a 20-minute mile and you say, "You are fast, lady. You are fast. 20-minute mile? That's amazing. What a good job you did. What a good job. You're a great runner. You should try out for state. You could really go somewhere without running, right? You ran a 20-minute mile. That's sarcasm. That's the definition of it, right? Saying this country is run by childless cat ladies is only sarcastic if what you really mean is that actually childless cat ladies don't have very much power at all. And you'd say it like, haha, this country, I don't know, like, right. I'm trying to imagine how the sarcastic version of the childless cat lady thing would go. But the implication of that would actually be that maybe childless cat ladies should have more power because they don't have very much at all, right? That's what sarcasm is. That's the definition of it. You're undermining your stated statement with your intention that is supposed to be gleaned from the way that you say it, right? That people are be like, I see. He doesn't really mean that childless cat ladies have too much power. He actually means they don't have much power at all. That's what sarcasm is.
But what I've simply said is that I think that it's really a profound change that's happened in our country where we become anti-family, and I would like to change that. And I think if you talk to young women, whether they have children or don't want to have children, what you consistently hear is that a lot of young women feel like they don't have options. I saw this with my own wife, who's a working mother, who's a very, very accomplished litigator. She has 3 beautiful kids and always felt like she was having to balance being a good mom with being the kind of litigator that she
Is he sweating? I feel like he's starting to sweat here. Omega Star, thank you for the gifted sub to Variant Sigma. Variant Sigma, you've just been weaseled. And that's... You just got weaseled. You just got weaseled. I feel like I've missed at least one person's where they want their dono goal to go. So remember, when you donate, whether it's on Twitch through gifting a sub, getting yourself a sub, whether it's on YouTube with a super chat, super sticker, getting yourself a membership, or gifting memberships to others, whether you're signing up for Patreon or you are donating on Throne, right? Any of those, right? You feel free to let me know what topic you want to see. We've got FD Signifier's new online left video. We've got Ethan Klein and Hassan Piker's breakup, the explanation. Why did leftovers end? We've got Chat Chooses Violence, which violence is always an option here, especially when we've got more content to go over. We'll get to that sometime, even if Chat doesn't choose violence today, though. And we've got Elon's diaper situation, which has actually got kind of popular amongst the donors here. You can always also put your money behind Fallout New Vegas. You can also put your money on Vox Populi if you want to throw it back to the chat and say, you know what, I think what should count is the votes themselves, right? If you want to stop the steal, then you can say Vox Populi. But yeah.
she wanted to be. I just want women to have more choices. I've seen that very personally in my own family, and I think it's something that is broken about our country.
Let me zoom out.
Rob Bob says, y'all are clueless and are going to vote a radical into office? Enough said. Yo, mic drop. Rob Bob. Golf clap to slow clap. Rob Bob. Golf clap to slow clap. Amazing. I'm speechless. I'm no comment chick. I have no comeback for that. Kamala Harris. A radical. I'm kind of amazed, Rob Bob. I'm kind of amazed. Really. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. These are radicals.
A little bit. Then you're calling it a sarcastic comment.
Sure.
And yet, some women, and you got the feedback in real time, felt like it was a gut punch to them personally. Do you regret making that comment?
Look, I regret certainly that a lot of people took it the wrong way, and
It's their fault for taking it the wrong way. I regret that. Oh, I regret you didn't understand my sophisticated humor, my multiple levels of J-Reg level irony. That's really regrettable that you didn't understand that I was actually saying that cat ladies, they don't have enough power. We should leave more stuff up to childless hot ladies.
I certainly regret that the DNC and Kamala Harris lied about it.
But do you regret what you said, Senator?
Look, Kristen, I'm going to say things from time to time that people disagree with. I'm a real person. I'm going to make jokes. I'm going to say things sarcastically. And I think that what's important is that we focus.
There is video proof that Kamala Harris is a radical. Have you got her, like, is she, like, in some kind of training video? Like, what do we have? What do we have that, is she in Black Bloc? What is she throwing a Molotov cocktail? Is she swinging a bike lock? What's she, radical Kamala Harris? Please tell me.
On the
Describe it, Bob. Use your words.
There are certainly going to be things that I say if I'm elected vice president that people are going to say, well, I wish he had said that differently. I think it's most important to actually be the person I actually am and to say those sarcastic comments were made in the service of a real substantive point. This country
So the point was that cat ladies don't have enough power?
has become too anti-family. It's too expensive to afford a house. It's too expensive.
So in other words, anybody that doesn't have a family, you got too much power. You need to give up some of that power. So it's not sarcastic. It's not sarcastic. Maybe he misspoke, right?
To afford groceries. Donald Trump.
It's too expensive to afford groceries because of childless cat ladies? What, you're gonna, like, execute them? You're gonna sacrifice them and we're gonna have lots of money?
And I want to change that. And unless we get better,
You're gonna sell them into some sort of a Handmaid's Tale situation? What are you gonna do?
leadership, we're not gonna.
But again, just very quickly, given that people have told you directly, have spoken out, have said that they were offended, they were hurt by those comments, do you wish you never made those childless cat lady comments?
I think that it's.
Look, you want to talk about somebody that's starting a culture war? This guy right here. This guy right here. JD Vance. JD Vance is fomenting hatred against people that this should never be a thing. This should never be a thing. Look, some people have families. Some people don't have families. And in my family, the family members that didn't have families themselves, they got taken care of. All right. We went and visited them. We hung out with them. They still have their extended family. All right. And it's okay, because not everybody has to have a family. Not everybody wants to have a family. Not everybody can have a family. What this guy wants to do is set you against, foment hatred against, like, the childless. Oh my God. And you know what this really connects to? He said that he didn't like the idea that people without kids had the same vote as the rest of us, right? And he proposed an idea of, like, you know, if you have kids, maybe you should be able to use their votes too, right? Big family, trad family. Maybe you should have like 20 votes. The father pulls up. Of course, the father, not the mother, right? The father pulls up to the voting booth, casting not just one ballot, but 20 ballots. And the childless cat lady comes up and she only has one. So his vote counts 20 times more than hers. He's got a big family. He's got a big family, so he should be able to vote more. This is what he said, right? Far from being a misunderstood, mischaracterized missive that he threw out there, far from being sarcastic, right? This statement actually is an understatement. He doesn't just think that childless cat ladies have too much power. He wants to do something about it. He wants to reduce their power. And if you look at who he's connected to, you will see exactly how he feels about democracy. And I don't mean actual democracy. I don't mean a good democracy. I don't mean, you know, getting money out of politics and really being able to, you know, choose your destiny yourself, right? Without any interference from capitalists. I'm talking about just basic, can you vote for shitty presidential candidate A or shitty presidential candidate B? Can you vote for a shit sandwich or giant douche, right? That democracy he thinks is inefficient. We need to have something more like a monarchy, more like what they've got going on in Silicon Valley, where the CEO controls the board and has no guardrails and does whatever the fuck they want. That's his vision of the unitary executive. That's his vision of disenfranchising all those who disagree with him. Who the hell was saying, Bob, were you saying that we're in danger of choosing a radical with Kamala Harris? Do you not see that the real radicals are the ones that say, just come out and vote this time, you won't need to vote again. We've got all the votes we need. The one that tried to prevent the peaceful transfer of power? Do you not see that as radical? I do.
Much more important for me to just be a normal human being who sometimes says things that people disagree with. I have a lot of regrets, Kristen, but making a joke 3 years ago is not in the top 10 of the list.
All right, another big topic in this race is immigration. There has been a lot of discussion about Donald Trump's plans for mass deportation.
Yeah.
According to one estimate, more than 11 million U.S. citizens live in households with mixed immigration status, including more than 5 million children. If you and former President Trump were elected, would you separate families as a part of your mass deportation effort?
Well, we have to start with the foundational issue here, which is we have 25 million illegal aliens in this country right now because Kamala Harris has refused to do her job.
Very quickly, DHS says it's much lower. It's closer to 8 million.
I
don't know. Where do you get the 25 million from?
Well, I think the 25 million.
I made it the fuck up. That's the talking points I was handed. That's the talking points I was handed. But also the frustrating thing is that like Trump caused a lot of the immigration that happened during the Biden administration, right? It was due to the conditions in Venezuela, conditions imposed on them by Donald Trump's punitive sanctions, right? Venezuela got fucked up. People wanted to move out of Venezuela and they showed up at the border. And since there's no pathway to citizenship, some of them might have had to come, try to petition for asylum. Some of them might have, and they might not have had a, hearing that could be heard, right? There weren't enough judges to hear the asylum cases, right? These are all things that are on Trump more than they're on Biden. And they're on all of us when we allow people like Donald Trump to hurt Venezuelans in our name, to immiserate and impoverish an entire country because he failed to enact a coup on them.
The people that should have been deported that maybe weren't deported, plus you had another 12 to 15 million that have come in since Kamala Harris. Look,
DHS
whatever the number is,
that number for the record. They say it's
fair,
closer to 8 to 10 million.
But I think
fair enough. I'm full of shit.
Reasons to think that DHS is under.
Okay, I thought I could get away with lying to you, but I guess not.
Estimating whatever the real number is, it's way too high, right? It's millions upon millions of illegal immigrants that have come in just since Kamala Harris became the border czar a few years ago.
She was put in charge of the root causes of migration.
Well, the root causes of migration, I would say, Kristen, is that Kamala Harris refuses to do her job as border.
So he's saying the root cause of immigration is the lack of a physical, hermetically sealed boundary that costs a ridiculous amount of unnecessary money, rather than the root causes are United States foreign policy. That's what Kamala was tasked to deal with, right? Kamala was tasked to negotiate with countries like Guatemala about these things, right? Stuff that would make his draconian immigration policies unnecessary.
And let's just start there. I want to answer your question, but I think it's important to sort of sequence this in the right way. So if you want to get control of the illegal immigration problem, you have to stop the bleeding. You have to stop.
These guys have diametrically opposing skulls. One of them is a triangle. The other one is round.
Stop so many people from coming here illegally.
Oh, you were talking about, yeah, with the other.
Undoing everything that Kamala Harris did practically on day one of the administration. You have to reimpose deportations. You have to stop catch and release. Stop granting asylum to every single person who comes in here and says that they need asylum, and stop granting mass parole. These policies are why we have the immigration crisis that we have. So I think focus on fixing the problem before we even
focus on fixing the problem. Great idea. Great idea. Let's take those sanctions off of Venezuela to start.
the problem, we've got to stop the problem from getting worse.
And as you know, President Biden passed a series of executive actions, and illegal border crossings are now at their lowest levels in about.
Yeah, Ezzy Sanchez says most of the immigration issues we face here in the U.S. is because the U.S. messed up many Central and South American countries. I was just talking about that, right? Venezuela is my go-to example because it's more recent, but you can find a lot of other examples as well, right? The United States, like I said, is a global hegemon which exerts hegemonic power in Latin America, and that the effect of that power in a lot of cases has been very negative. And some of the immigration is due to that effect, is due to immiserating people in other countries. And if you want to deal with immigration, how about you deal with your foreign policy first? United Fruit says Double Dostoevsky.
5 years, so much so that Greg Abbott is no longer busing people to other cities. But let me ask this fundamental question,
please.
Senator. Fundamental question. Will families be separated under your mass deportation?
And again, because you made a point here, I do want to answer this question about families and about deportations. But you,
Rob Bob, I got a question for you though. Is abolishing the democratic process, is that radical? Is a unitary executive radical? Is making a president unaccountable for crimes that he commits while in pursuance of his duty as president, is that radical? See, you're pointing out like some things as being radical on one side, which amount to like what? Like anti price gouging laws? And you're unwilling to look at the other side in its attempt to undermine any semblance of democracy. And before you even get there, before you even say we're a republic and not a democracy, yes, that's right, a democratic republic. If you keep it, but Republicans don't want to keep it. A lot of these assholes don't want to keep it. They want a monarch. They want an emperor. They want a Silicon Valley style CEO in charge of the nation that is not accountable. They want to disenfranchise those who disagree with them to be able to elect their favorite guy every single time. That, Rob Bob, that is radical. But thanks for playing.
You made this point that border crossings are lower. Border crossings at the southern border are lower because the Harris administration is sending more immigrants through the ports of entry. So instead of coming through the southern border, they're now being flown at taxpayer expense to the ports of entry all over our country. The number of illegal crossings, Chris, and this is a really important point, they're not any lower. They're just shuffling how the people are coming into the country in the first place. And this is very important.
They're able to
about
process them more
deportations.
efficiently, but
I think he's actually like, see, he's such a liar. It's hard to tell what he's saying at any point. I think he's probably talking about asylum seekers. And yeah, sending them through ports of entry is going to be able to process them more efficiently, right? Because again, the problem is there are not enough judges. There's not enough immigration judges. There's not a pathway to citizenship. The problem in a lot of cases is with policy, both foreign policy enacted by the United States, a global hegemon around the world, particularly in South and Central America, and a problem with the immigration laws in this country.
Greg Abbott's not
But
setting them to other
Kristen,
states.
I don't
But
want a
just-
border czar
just-
who makes it more efficient for illegal immigrants to come into
But
this
to
country.
this
That's why we
question-
have the problem that we have.
Senator, to this question, because so many people want
Oh my God. So she's not even gonna, she's not even gonna, well, here's the deal. Here's the deal. This is an interview, okay? And he's engaging her as if it's a debate. I mean, if this was a debate, the thing to come back with would be that
And this is very
They're
important.
able
Now,
to
about
process them more
deportations.
efficiently, but Greg Abbott's not
But
setting
I
them to
don't,
other
Kristen,
states.
I don't
But
want
just-
a border.
yeah, that she, like, he's accusing her of wanting of wanting immigrants to be allowed in illegally more efficiently, right? When what she's actually talking about is, I think, asylum and sending people to places where an immigration judge might be there and they might be able to get their case heard, their asylum case heard more efficiently. Because guess what? Asylum is a human right. It is something that the United States has been proud to offer to people who are in other countries where shit is fucked up, right? Proud to offer asylum. You know, if you can come in and prove to a judge that you are that you meet the stipulations for asylum, right? And the Trump administration wants to literally violate human rights and say no asylum, no asylum. It doesn't matter what's happening in your country, or if you come from these countries, right? No asylum. Maybe if you come from these countries, you can have asylum.
Who makes it more efficient for illegal immigrants to come into this country. That's why we have the problem that we have.
Senator, to this question, because so many people want to know the answer to this. Will families be separated under your mass deportation policy?
I think that families are currently being separated, and you're certainly going to have to deport some people in this country. Now, I think you
So
start
that's a yes?
with I think you start with the most violent criminals in our country. Those people need to be deported. That's where you focus federal resources. I think you, of course, have a number of children who are currently living with drug cartel members, not actually their families. We need to, of course, find...
So that's what we're going to do. We're going to tell you that, yeah, well, maybe their families are drug cartel members. And even if they are their families, we're still going to deport them. We're still going to separate families.
Their families and get them back to their families. But it's very interesting here, because what Kamala Harris says is that Donald Trump wants to separate families. Kamala Harris's policies have led to thousands upon thousands of migrant children living with sex traffickers and drug cartels.
Well,
that is the consequence of her policies.
But there's not a
Some of them are
policy to
even missing.
separate families. There's not a policy to separate families.
Oh, if you know that your policies will lead to family separation, you don't get to claim. Kristen, this is important.
wait, hold on.
Kamala Harris
Hold on.
cannot claim that she doesn't know that her policies are leading to family separation. They are, and everybody knows it, and she has to take responsibility for that. That's what real leadership is.
There are some families who have been separated, as you say, some because their parents are criminals. But of course, under the Trump administration, there was a zero tolerance policy, which is an actual policy. But let's move on.
No, please,
because we're
can I
running
just
out
make
of
this point,
time.
Kristen, because this is so important.
We are running out.
You insist on a debate with your interviewer. That's wild.
There was a zero. I'll give you more time. There was a zero.
I'll give you more time. What are you talking about? He's acting like this is a debate.
Zero tolerance policy during
You're here to be interviewed, sir.
the Trump administration.
And she moved on instead of fucking debating you because it's an interview.
And that led to less family separation than under Kamala Harris's border policies. That's what's so striking about this. Actually enforcing our border is the most humane thing for children and certainly for American citizens.
But I don't hear you denying that families will be separated. Let's move on to something that Donald Trump said in North Carolina and yet again Friday night. He said, quote, "Our primary focus is not to get out the vote. It's to make sure they don't cheat. Because we have..."
Izzy Sanchez says Dole had to pay reparations just recently to Colombia for what they did there.
All the votes you need. You can see it. Why is Donald Trump casting doubt on the election before it's even happened?
I don't think that's what Donald Trump is doing.
Well, that's what he's doing. That's what he says here. We need to make sure they don't cheat.
I think that what he's saying is that we want to pursue a set of policies in the Republican Party that make it easier for every legal ballot to be cast.
Now, the truth of the matter is that what Donald Trump has been saying, and he said this at multiple rallies, this is not just one time, this is not just him misspeaking, right? He said this in multiple rallies in multiple ways, some of them more explicit than others. But he's saying to his voters, you don't need to vote. You don't need to vote. That indicates that maybe he is considering, maybe he has resigned himself to, extra electoral means to obtain the office of presidency. That he is planning to try to steal the election. That's what that sounds like. Now, here's why this is a bad question. You can't ask the fucking robber, now your partner, your partner in crime has said that you both intend to rob this bank and take all the money and, get it in unmarked bills and then to escape to, right? You can't ask that person that. They're going to fucking lie to you.
Counted, but make it harder for illegally cast ballots to be counted. Now, we can disagree about how many of those there are, whether they're...
So, yeah, that's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. They're going to try to get votes thrown out. They're going to try to disenfranchise people. They're going to try to steal the election. They have resigned themselves to the fact that they cannot beat Kamala Harris fair and square.
A few hundred, a few thousand, maybe more. But just in the last week, okay? So Just in the last week, once in Arizona and once in Pennsylvania, there were major court wins that make our ballot process more secure and more effective. I think that's what Donald Trump is talking about, is we have to pursue.
Yeah, there's shit that's going on that's kicking people off the ballots. People that registered to vote are being kicked off the ballots right now in Georgia.
Sometimes through litigation, sometimes through better policy.
So that's what he's saying. We're going to try to win it with lawyers. We're going to try to win it with, corrupt local officials. We're going to try to win it with judges. We're going to try to win it in every way besides actually trying to get the most votes of the American people, because that ain't going to happen.
State or national.
Because the American people are onto us.
A set of rules that make sure every ballot is legally counted.
Well, it's very different from your message, which is you said, and I'll quote you back to yourself, we have to work as hard as possible to persuade Americans to vote for us. Are you on the same page as Donald Trump? Because, again, he seems to be casting doubt on the results of the election before it's even happened.
Of course, we're on the same page, Kristen. We talk all the time, and I guarantee you, if you sat here and said, Mr. President, Donald Trump, do you believe that we need to do, that your campaign needs to persuade voters as much as possible? Of course he's going to say yes.
Look, I know it sounds like my partner in crime was saying that we were going to rob the bank, but if you brought him here, I guarantee you, and you asked him, Donald Trump, do you intend to rob this bank? He would be like, no, we're not going to rob the bank. It's very important to no, of course not.
It's not inconsistent with thinking that we need to pursue a set of approaches that make sure legal ballots get counted, illegal ballots don't get counted.
Do you have faith the 2024 election will be free and fair?
I do, Kristen. I do.
It would have been funny to ask him about the 2020.
And we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that happens. We're going to pursue every pathway to make sure, again, legal ballots get counted. But I feel very good about where we are. I think we're going to win this race, and I think we're going to win it in a very good election.
All right.
There we go. Disastrous interview for the vice presidential candidate. All the way from just the posture that he adopted in sitting, across from his interviewer, to his attempt to turn an interview into a debate. To him sweating bullets as he's answering this questions. Like, this did not go well. This is yet another reason that Donald Trump might want to take JD Vance off the ticket. Now, Chad, I promised you I would do a little bit of polls around here. We do a little bit of predictions. We do a little bit of electoral maps around here, and let's do this again. Let's do it once again, because I promised you I would do that.
Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Tuesday, August 27th, 2024, and we are just under a week from the Democratic National Convention that took place last Monday through Thursday. The Democratic Convention that served to be a redefining moment for Vice President Harris, now seeing that her approval rating is surging as a result of the Democratic National Convention. What we saw just weeks ago, leading up to Kamala Harris getting into the DNC, was that her approval rating was undergoing a huge rebound and huge surge in success for the way that the American public perceived her. The day at which President Biden dropped out of the race, her unfavorability rating was 52.4% to a favorability rating of 37.8%. The overall net, negative 15%. And in just around a month, today, Vice President Harris stands with just a negative 1.7% national average, a massive, massive uptick ever since she entered into the race. And tracking her favorability rating numbers over the past weeks has been a very interesting process, because while Kamala Harris certainly has built up this very large perception of her in a very positive way, a lot of it was still largely negative. We didn't really see that many positive numbers, and we actually saw just a week before Joe Biden dropped out of the race that Kamala Harris's approval rating was actually not doing well whatsoever, even in the lead up. It wasn't as if, there was all this expectation around Biden that brought her down. It was more so that, Kamala Harris wasn't as popular as she is today. In fact, just earlier on in this year, around March, around the State of the Union, Kamala Harris dropped to one of her lowest points ever in terms of national favorability rating. And yet today, it really has rebounded quite tremendously. And you can see it. It is a very, very massive uptick. It is as if, all of a sudden Kamala Harris visited the homes of 1 out of every 2 Americans and convinced them to like her. And that's largely been what the major effort of this campaign has been, to redefine Kamala Harris, to make her more likable, make her more electable. And that's something that every campaign really embarks on when they take it into a race where a candidate doesn't have high favorability ratings, as we can see right before she entered into the race. At the same time, The numbers here that we are starting to see even recently, post-Democratic convention, is that Kamala Harris is now starting to get positives. Like I was saying, while we did see a narrowing of the negatives, it was still very much, negative overall. It was still good for her in comparison to Trump, and this election has practically always been about comparison. But it was very rare that we saw...
These are the same numbers we looked at last night. This is the RCP average.
Anything more than just one morning consult poll that showed her in the overall
favorability.
Positive. Outside of that, it was nobody else who said that she was gaining. But here's what we found. The Morning Consult released another data point today showing Kamala Harris up 4. Then The Economist and YouGov, which had negative numbers for the past 3.5 years, show a tie. Emerson also showing Kamala Harris up 2, but that was even pre-convention. And at this point in time, too, I am reminded of the Democratic Party's challenge in 2020, and that was tackling President Biden's favorability rating going into the Democratic convention. Around the time that President Biden had secured enough delegates to win the nomination, he was down in the negatives. In fact, the entire time from that point on, from Super Tuesday, he was in the negatives nationwide, down 4, down 5, down 6, largely running very similarly to that of Donald Trump, except Donald Trump was, in fact, more unpopular. But as he did gain, this started to come from a reintroduction of President Biden to the American public. But it wasn't on full display until the Democratic Party underwent this huge surge in advertisement spending, in digital strategy, and in terms of convention showing to redefine who President Biden was, or at the time, Vice President Biden. And from then on, from that convention, the numbers tremendously gained for Joe Biden. He went from being in the negatives practically through the entire summer to being in the positives through the election. And that was the most important thing, because Donald Trump tried to do something similar. The RNC tried to redefine Donald Trump as a new person, Donald Trump as a new candidate. But the only person that it really did justice for was President Biden, who ended up riding that again into victory on Election Day. And so when you take a look, too, Kamala Harris is no stranger to changes in approval. We can see that earlier on in the campaign season, when she was introduced as the Democratic nominee for vice president, her approval was up just 1.8%. But then again came the convention, and her numbers started to improve. They started to get better, and more people started to know her, started to like her. And by the time we hit the election, we saw a tightening up of it. But right around the time to lead it to the election, it was 7-6 points during a lot of early voting, a lot of absentee ballots, a lot of provisional ballots because of COVID-19. And what we found was that Kamala Harris, alongside President Biden, recovered numbers that actually, if you take a look at the long history of it, it might have been positive, but when she was running for president in 2019, it was a lot of negatives. These are all data points from when she was running in 2019, starting from January, in fact, December of the following year, negative. It was not great for Vice President Harris until, again, she got the nomination. More people started to see her. More people started to perceive her. She was more on the national stage. And then they started to like her. They started to see more of her, and so they started to like her. It was less about how the media was defining her and more about how she was defining herself. It was less about how right-wing actors were defining her when someone is not as present or not as forward-facing. For example, when she was at the bottom of the ticket with Biden and Harris, she, of course, was not going to be as relevant or as talked about as Joe Biden. But now that she's at the top of the ticket, again, you don't see as much of Tim Walz as you do Kamala Harris, and there's a reason for that. And so Kamala Harris has started to reintroduce herself to the American public, especially during this convention process. And that's where she started to do well. That debate also solidified that Kamala Harris was the right choice for Democrats. I think the DNC has solidified that this was the right choice for Democrats in this election season with Tim Walz. All around, though, Kamala Harris making gains, seeing a growth in overall approval. This is really good for Kamala Harris. And I think a big part of it, too, is that, this nation is very much divided strictly down party lines. You do find that in elections, two unpopular candidates, somebody has to hit 50%, usually, at least, right? And so in 2020, despite Biden may not have been the most popular Democrat that has run for office, Obama was far more favored. At the same time, the numbers looked very similar to that of Obama's even first election or 2012 re-election, where Biden actually outpaced Joe Biden. Approval does not determine the outcome of the election every time. But it is a general indicator that in a race where there were two very unpopular candidates, it is clear today that Kamala Harris has completely turned that around in favor of the Democratic Party. Just take a look at all of this red. Take a look at where we were. Introduction into the administration, a year in, 2022, midterm season, even after the Dobbs decision, negative. All of these numbers were very red. You did not see a single positive until she became the Democratic nominee for president, until this convention. Which is why you see this massive surge for Vice President Harris. And today, it stands to be at the best it has been since early 2021. 3 years later, over that, 3.5 years later. And Kamala Harris is back to a position where by the time we reach election day, she could very well be more liked than disliked. And that is a problem for Donald Trump. Because when he was running against Biden, we could see that their favorability rating numbers were largely running even. In fact, Trump had the upper hand against Biden. And a big reason for that wasn't because Biden was this candidate who nobody liked. It was because Democrats liked him, but not enough. Only 60-70% of Democrats were saying positive things about Joe Biden when asked about it. With Kamala Harris, it is a unified, absolutely adore her. 90 to 95%.
I do think,
when it
look,
was Biden, it was 60 to 70%.
I do think this is potentially a learning moment for not so much Americans, but for a certain group of people who I'm going to call vote skulls, right? These are the kind of people, they know that Trump is bad. They don't want to see Trump reelected. And when they hear people that are on the left saying, like, I don't know if I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris, their impulse is to shame that person, to first, like, warn that person, like, Trump is going to be really bad. You don't want Trump. We need to get behind Biden, right? And then to make fun of that person. Okay, well, you know, you're it's going to be your own fault when people get deported, right? It's just like, you know, that there's a certain kind of person, right? And look, they're well-intentioned and they're right that, you know, Trump, the outcome of Trump being elected is worse than Biden or Kamala. But look at what they were doing before Biden dropped out, right? People were not excited to vote for Biden. And they thought, oh, well, I know how to fix that. We will tell them that they have to vote for Biden, and then they will get excited. We'll tell them how bad Trump is, and then they will get excited. And then they will vote. They will vote, right? And they think that just because that sort of fear and that sort of knowledge of, like, what the other possibility is, just because that motivates them, that will necessarily motivate another person. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I'm not talking, like, from a moral standpoint. I'm definitely not talking for a logical standpoint. That's the frustrating thing about dealing with vote scolds, is because they are being logical. There is a logic to what they're saying, but they're trying to impose that logic on people that they do not in fact control. And that does not get people to vote for the candidate that you want to, right? To get everyone out to the polls to vote against Donald Trump, you have to have someone exciting, or at least somewhat exciting, or at least somewhat encouraging, or at least slightly better than Biden to vote for, right? The proof is in the polls. The proof is in the polls. What changed, right? As far as policy, I'm not sure very much did. And that's me being a little bit down on her campaign, because I've seen her take back, you know, good stand after good stand that she has spoken to in the past. And she's clarified those, but like, no, I don't stand for Medicare for all. No, I don't stand for this. No, I'm going to both sides, Israel, Palestine, right? What I see from her is like a very minuscule difference in policy between her and Biden. And yet her excitement, her poll numbers, and her approval rating, her positivity, these things are better. These things are better with Kamala. So, I mean, that shows you right there that if you want more people to vote for the Democratic candidate, you got to get a better candidate, right? And as far as the people that are still, like, their stomachs are turned by Biden's Gaza policy, and they're not much more hopeful about Kamala, right? You are actually unironically better off bugging Kamala, bugging Biden, like making your viewpoint known that they need to do more for their voters, that they need to distance themselves from this failed policy of the bear hug of Netanyahu. They need to split from that, right? You'll have better odds with that as far as getting people to vote against Trump than you are going to have like just yelling at him, right? This should be a lesson. Should be a lesson. And like, look, I say vote scolds like it's a bad thing, but like I said, you know, there's a logic to what these people are saying. I understand where they're coming from, and I, like them, do not want to see Donald Trump elected. I just don't think they're going about it in a good way, and I don't think that their methods are going to bear much fruit. Whereas my methods of, instead of bug the voters, bug the candidate to be better, let them know that they can't take your vote for granted. You're going to have better results with that.
And so his favorability rating numbers took a hit. And while I don't think they would have been, resulted in a Trump plus 8% victory, 9% victory, I do believe that Donald Trump was on track to win the election on the day Joe Biden dropped out of the race.
100%.
And that's why I had that election prediction 2 weeks prior that had Joe Biden showing the worst electoral performance for Democrats in quite some time. In fact, the worst electoral performance for Democrats since Walter Mondale. That would have been a really bad look for the Democratic Party, and they know that. And I think that's a big reason why Joe Biden decided to drop out of the race. But what we see here is that Trump was, in part, outpacing Biden, in a way now that Kamala Harris is outpacing him. Trump's favorability ratings weren't suffering as much as they were in 2020, at least not to the same extent as certainly after January 6th. But point being here, that on the favorability rating game, Kamala Harris has completely changed the trajectory of this election. And so now that I look ahead, to an electoral map like this, my most recent election projection showing Kamala Harris up 287 to 251, I have always been adamant that this election was going to be close. I mean, even the race that I said where Joe Biden would perform worse than the worst Democrat since Walter Mondale, that still would have been a close race in theory, right? I think Donald Trump might have won the national popular vote by a few points and then would have won the swing states by 1 or 2 or 3. It wouldn't have been a blowout, right? And so I do believe, even with Kamala Harris on the ticket, it's a close race. We've known this about the 2024 election, that it is always and always will be a competitive race for as long as this nation remains as polarized as it is today. But when there are candidates who can make it through the weeds and can ride a convention bump, not only in national perception, not only in national head-to-head numbers, but also in the way that people perceive them on a personal basis. Kamala Harris changing the way that voters view her completely squashes any argument that Democrats or independents or Republicans even had against her being swapped out on the ticket. And to be fair, nobody could have looked at this now and predicted it a month ago and said absolutely it would completely rebound. I was a firm believer that should she had been swapped out, her approval rating would go up because people are going to try to coalesce around a new candidate equally. To say that she would go from being down 15 the day Biden dropped out to being down less than 2 points today with 70 days to grow.
Chat, you're never going to guess this, okay? You're never going to guess what just happened. An anonymous donor just donated $30 to Throne, which actually brings us up to 56% of the dono goal. Look, like I said, the odds are massively against us, and it's my fault, and it's my computer's fault, and it's Waluigi's fault for not having good posture. It's a lot of people can be blamed, myself not the least of all, right? But we're now only 44% from hitting that dono goal, and we got a little bit more content to go yet. So I'm holding out some hope. Again, as always, when you donate, feel free to let me know in the chat which of these topics you want to see, right? We've got FD Signifiers Online Left. We got Ethan and Hassan, their breakup, like how Leftovers ended. The explanation. We got Chat Chooses Violence, which is always a fun option. And we got the Elon diaper situation. And yeah, when you donate, you can let me know, and I will put your donation as a percentage, as an additional percentage for the topic of your choice. So you'll actually make it more likely for the topic that you want to win to actually win. All you have to do is let me know what you're choosing. That goes for any kind of donation out there.
And a convention bump that looks like it's starting to form. It is point after point after point that I cannot express enough that this campaign, for the month and a week that it has been run very powerfully. $580 million fundraised for the Kamala Harris campaign, not just including Act Blue. $582 million for Kamala Harris's presidential campaign alone since July 21st. That is an insane amount of funding. That is an insane amount of money. And it's the reason why you now have tens of field offices opening up in battleground states, while you have $300+ million slated in advertisement spending after Labor Day. You have probably been seeing Kamala Harris ads left and right on the TV, on YouTube, on TikTok, anywhere you go. Big reason, or maybe not on TikTok, but big reason that you're seeing it is because the advertisement structure has been set up so powerfully because it is funded. I can only imagine that we will be seeing even more after Labor Day. And that's good news for Kamala Harris, because it is this multi-part effort that has saved the Democratic Party's candidacy this election. And it is Kamala Harris who Democrats have to thank, and who certainly is bringing, in Tim Walz's words, the joy back to the race for the Democratic Party. Because they are far more unified than they have been in a very long time. These unanimous positive ratings doing super well is unlike anything we saw for President Biden since 2021. And Biden had 3 years to do it. What Kamala Harris has accomplished in a month, and that has changed the way that Americans view her. Turn her track record into something very positive, where many Republicans thought it would be a detriment. Leaning into her work in the administration where it matters, like abortion rights advocacy, student loan debt forgiveness, capping insulin for seniors, things that are good for Kamala Harris from the administration she can latch onto. In moments where Democrats may have heavy disagreements with that of President Biden, she can also use that. She's in a unique enough position that people can say, she's not the president, she can't do this now. She clearly has some fundamental disagreements with that of some Democrats. And some even could say President Biden. At the same time, she can take credit for a lot of what has been done good for America on behalf of the Biden-Harris administration. And so it's a really good place to be when you are someone like Kamala Harris who's looking for a unified party. You got that. Looking for a lot of money. You got that. Looking for an energized youth electorate. You have that. And that's why I think, too, people are now seeing her in a different light, whether on social media or TV or even watching the convention, which had over 20 million viewers every single day. Millions of more viewers than that of the RNC. I think 8 to 9 million more viewers than that of the RNC. And the Republican Party loves ratings. And that was an RNC that happened just days after Donald Trump had an assassination attempt on his life. Days after JD Vance was announced as the Republican nominee for vice president. And this was a time frame in which the RNC should have been the most tapped into. The RNC should have been the most watched. The RNC had everything going for them.
Very disingenuous to say unified and unanimous approval. Yeah, there's a portion of the party that doesn't understand what should be a very clear correlation between Biden's sinking in the polls and his Gaza policy, right? These are people that generally don't care that much about policy, right? They're Team Democrat, but if the Democrats decide, guess who's getting thrown under the bus this week? It's going to be immigrants thrown under the bus. They'll be like, yeah, fuck those immigrants. Yeah, that's right. We were for them just a second ago, but the Democrats said fuck them, so fuck them because I'm Team Democrat, right? And same thing with same thing with what's going on in Gaza, right? There are Democrats out there, and they don't get that there are people out there that are not like them. They don't get that a meaningful portion of people are having trouble voting for a ticket that won't do the bare minimum in terms of standing up for Palestinians. And they think that the power move, they think that the strategic move, they think that the electorally beneficial move, because that's how these people think of, right? They chalking up that score. Chalking up that score for Team Democrat, right? Did Team Democrat win? That's all I care about. That's all I care about, the scoreboard, right? It doesn't mean anything, right? And there's no realization that this is about policy at the end of the day. This is about reality. This is about how things are going to be. But yeah, there's a certain degree of nihilism, I would say.
And Democrats just decided, now that Kamala Harris is on the ticket, that they have everything going for them. And the American public is agreeing. This surge in approval is unlike anything we have seen in a very long time. I think in 2020 is really the only comparison.
What's my solution to help Palestine? You could start with conditioning military aid on a ceasefire, an immediate ceasefire, and a real ceasefire. You could start with that.
Terrible point there, but even then, we certainly did not see a 14-point swing nationally in under a month. And so this swing here, I think, in favor of Kamala Harris is one that is indicative of what a very good and very put-together campaign can do against a candidacy like that of Donald Trump. Because I don't deny that Kamala Harris's numbers are likely doing better because her direct point of comparison is now Donald Trump. Because her direct point of comparison are Republicans who are perceived as too extreme and too insane for the average American centrist voter. That's where Kamala Harris is coming into this, which is why you do see back in 2020, they are still in very much, embodiment of viewpoints and belief sets and whatever it might be, the same people they were in 2020. But they were running against an opposition candidate. The only problem for Joe Biden is that he couldn't recover it against Donald Trump. Voters didn't like Joe Biden more, even if they were voting for him, and maybe he could have won. I mean, I don't think he was going to on the day he dropped out, but there was still a non-zero chance that Donald Trump would have lost that election, maybe 10, 20%, but that's still a chance. And it would have been an electoral college upset, absolutely, but it would have been one that wouldn't have been driven by a favorability rating. But now Kamala Harris has this on her side, which is why I do believe her odds are far higher and why everybody agrees, yes, her odds are far higher, because they are. They're a lot better for Kamala Harris. They're doing better for the Democratic ticket, up and down it. And Kamala Harris is the person Democrats have to thank, and this DNC will likely work wonders for the future.
Yeah, it's disturbing how many people don't see what went wrong on the last night of the DNC. And I said the vibes were off, but I mean, that's not what I mean, right? I'm talking about Kamala's speech. I'm talking about Kamala's speech. I'm talking about her resurrecting the image of Kamala that she once tried to bury. Okay. So I feel like we've come to the time in the chat where we're gonna, in the stream, that's what it is. It's a live stream where we're gonna consolidate streams. Whoa, I pressed the wrong Control V there. Let's press the right one. Let us consolidate into one powerful chat. Shall we? We're gonna finish the stream and maybe even do some bonus content. Who knows? We're at 56%. Again, thank you, Anonymous, for the generous drone donation. I am blown away. Move it or lose it. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. I don't know. Somebody said early on I had an attitude. And I'm kind of like, what? Am I that passive that when I have like a little bit of verve to me, it gets taken as a mood? That's just like... No, I'm here to react, okay? I'm here to react to the input I'm given, and that means input from chatters, and that means input from content. Right? That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm here for. Nothing more and nothing less. No, I mean, I'm sure some more than that. Like, I do more than just react, don't I? Do I just react? Maybe I just react. Maybe that's like literally all that I do. It's react. But yeah, I'm waiting for Shorts chat to move over to the full scale chat, and then we're gonna switch to the main content for the night. People keep on asking, did I miss the Vosh tent? No, you didn't miss the Vosh tent. We're just getting started. We're just getting started to Vosh. All right. And I mean, like, it's fairly short, and oh my god, it's so cursed. It's so cursed.
Shiny Nix 86 super chatted $5. I'm afraid to vote after last night, but I guess I'll vote for the Hassan thing.
Oh my gosh.
Hopefully it will be safer than the all-fist weirdo.
I completely empathize with you in that. That was, yeah, I was kind of like, do you know what a fault hist is? Because like the super chats that you were giving kind of made me think that you were just like, oh, an alternate history thing. That could be, I mean, which can be fun. Sure. It's a fun little game to play in your head. It's a fun thing to maybe make videos about. I mean, there's a subsection of alt hist that where their alt hist is like, what if the Confederacy had won the Civil War? Or what the, I can't do the German accent. Oh God, I shouldn't. But like, you know, I mean, that kind of alt hist, right, is its own thing. What if alt hist, I mean, it's pretty right wing. But that, I don't know, is that what he got started doing? I should look more into it. It's one of these people that like a lot of streamers watch just as something to react to. And I never really knew why, but people kept on being like, you gotta do what if alt hist. We gotta see what is going on here. Okay, why can't I find this? Oh my god, Jireg. Let's see if I can find... There it is. Far left. No.
I don't know. Appealing towards people.
This is so terrible, okay? I hope you're ready for this. Right now, look. Jireg, if you don't know, or Jreg, is, I call him a living political compass meme. Because his videos have been him talking about extremist ideologies and kind of pretending to agree with various of them, making people wonder what Jreg's real ideology actually is. And, you know, he's been evasive, to say the least, right? But one thing's for damn sure. Jreg is not a leftist. But I think that some people have fooled themselves into thinking that he is. If you actually pay attention to what he's doing, it's a balanced set of dog whistles in all directions. And surprise of surprise is Jreg offers to canvass for progressive victory. And thank you, Shiny Nix, for the $5 super chat. What are we at now? 61%. So we're 39% of the way from making it. I'm going to end the stream on Shorts right now. Everybody just... Twitch, you can stay where you are. I'm not telling you to go anywhere. You watch the stream wherever you're most comfortable. But I'm going to bring everybody else into the horizontal stream, which I hope is okay. So we're ready to go. We're ready to get going. Shiny Nick says, I'm a history student. I thought I was going to have something to do with history. There was no history, not even fake history. He broke me. He breaks. Yeah, he has that effect. He does have that effect. All right. Rating everybody in. Hopefully, if that works.